This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening. This is the June 17, 2025 meeting of the Council of the Borough of Matawan, New Jersey. Pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by publishing notification in the Star Ledger on January 13, 2025, by sending notice to the Asbury Park Press and by posting. A copy of said notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Borough Clerk. A copy of said notice has also been sent to such members of the public as have requested such information in accordance with the statute. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Councilperson Dina Gunn. Present. Councilperson Arlo Pilot.
Present.
Councilperson Brian Livesey.
Here.
Councilperson Stephen Russell.
Present.
Councilperson Suzanne Reynolds.
Here.
Councilperson Charles Cross.
Here.
Mayor, you have full quorum.
Thank you. Please stand for a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Except for any first responders, please silence all cell phones. Council and members of the public, please speak directly and clearly into the microphone to properly record for the audio system. We are adding Resolution 25-06-28, authorizing ARH Associates to provide professional services for the Borough of Matawan Edgewater Drive Improvements Project to tonight's consent agenda. First on our list is the proclamation for Juneteenth National Independence Day, and I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Juneteenth National Independence Day, celebrated annually on June 19th, commemorates the date in 1865 when enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas were informed of their freedom, more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States, and it stands as a powerful reminder of our nation's complex history and the enduring spirit of those who fought for freedom and equality. Whereas the Borough of Matawan recognizes the profound contributions of African Americans to the cultural, economic, political, and social fabric of our community and our nation. And whereas Juneteenth offers an opportunity for all residents to reflect on the struggles, achievements, and resilience of the African American community and to recommit ourselves to the values of justice, equality, and inclusion for all. And whereas on September 10th, 2020, Juneteenth was designated as one of New Jersey's state holidays to be celebrated every third Friday in June. This designation predates the federal government's formal acknowledgement of the holiday. Juneteenth was officially recognized as a federal holiday on June 17th, 2021, thus further affirming its importance in our national consciousness and history. And now, therefore, Mayor and the Council of the Borough of Matawan, on behalf of our entire community, do hereby recognize and celebrate Juneteenth National Independence Day on June 19, 2025, and call upon all residents to honor this important day through education, reflection, and community engagement. Be it further proclaimed that the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Matawan urge all citizens to continue to work together to build a future rooted in unity, equity, and mutual respect. Signed and sealed this 17th day of June, 2025. I will leave this up here. It'll be posted in the lobby after tonight. This time, old business, privilege of the floor for agenda items only. If anybody would like to come up for agenda items only, they may do so now.
Frank Whalen, 24 Sunset Avenue, Matawan. I have questions regarding Resolution 250622 and 250624, the hiring of the temporary part-time CFO, and also the hiring of a full-time assistant to the borough clerk. What is the justification for appointing these positions? What is the total compensation for these positions, including salary, benefits, and any additional costs? And how does it fit in within the borough budget?
Happy to take that, Mayor, if you'd like. So for the temporary deputy CFO, it's due to an anticipated leave of absence that's upcoming. So that person will be filling in for our CFO, who will be out of the office for several months. And then the full-time assistant is a position that we've had for quite some time, even before I've gotten here. We filled it normally as a deputy. We tried to advertise for deputy and didn't have great success, so we pivoted to try a full-time assistant. We had better success and luck with that. Both positions have been budgeted for and fit within the salary ordinances of the borough.
I do have a suggestion for the mayor, which is that given the number of people that we have here tonight, which is unusually more than we're used to make sure that everybody gets their time to speak, my suggestion is that the speakers have their 5 minutes to speak, and then if they have questions, that the members of the governing body address the questions after their 5 minutes are up. Otherwise, it's hard to know whether they've gotten their full 5 minutes or not.
Okay.
I'm John Serto, 29 Crescent Place. Are you suggesting that it's 5 minutes total per resident?
So that's not something I'm suggesting now. That's just the convention of this body, is to give 5 minutes per resident for each privilege of the floor. So
Right, per agenda item.
Right. The only suggestion that I'm making now is that instead of having a back and forth, because this is something, if you've been in any council meeting all year, people have 5 minutes. So that's not new.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm suggesting is different is sometimes people kind of have a back and forth with the members of the governing body, and somebody who likes to talk like me could take up your whole 5 minutes because the 5 minutes is running. So my suggestion is each person gets their 5 minutes per agenda item, et cetera, if there's open public hearing, whatever. And then after that's over, then we respond instead of doing so intermittently.
This is regarding old business, ordinance 2512. I'm seeking clarification concerning the litigation and subsequent rezoning ordinance pertaining to Block 27, Lot 2, commonly referred to as 160 Main Street. The Majority Council, which oversaw the 2018 Master Plan revision, elected not to amend the provisions of the 2015 Master Plan to preclude potential builders' remedy litigation, a decision that precipitated the lawsuit regarding this property. This is question number one. Could the council explain why it attributes responsibility for this litigation and the result rezoning ordinance to the prior administration? Next, furthermore, the 2018 Master Plan revision incorporated a revised transit redevelopment plan, including specific provisions for a share housing component. However, the council did not seize the opportunity to harmonize the master plan with the protections outlined in Chapter 34 for the historic downtown district. Additionally, as my understanding, the borough failed to submit the fair share housing plan to the appropriate authorities until 2021, a full 3 years following the adoption of the 2018 master plan revision. If this is accurate, what factors to this delay and why was this submission not prioritized? During the 3.5-year period in which the borough was purportedly engaged in legal proceedings against the developer, was the New Jersey Historic Preservation Office consulted to evaluate whether the proposed mixed-use zoning for Block 27, Lot 2, complied with the protections afforded by Chapter 34's Historic Downtown District? If not, what was the basis for foregoing such consultation? Moreover, was an independent impact study commissioned to assess the potential effects on infrastructure, traffic, and structural integrity of adjacent historic properties? If no such study was conducted, I respectfully request an explanation for this decision.
Many of those questions are going to be answered in a presentation that's going to happen quite soon. So thank you.
Okay, I have another one. This is regarding Resolution 250616, award of IT contract for managed services, Ocean Computer Group. What competitive bidding process was followed to select Ocean Computer Group, and how was the process transparent to the taxpayers? What is the total contract value, and how does it compare to the budgeted amount for IT managed services? What specific IT services will Ocean Computer Group provide, and how will they deliver measurable benefits to the Borough of Matawan? What oversight mechanisms are in place to monitor Ocean Computer's performance and ensure accountability? And what are the key performance indicators and service level agreements to ensure high quality IT services? All right, I'll just thank myself for my comment. Okay, next. You're welcome. Resolution 250623, authorizing the hiring of a part-time hourly 2025 summer recreation camp nurse, Maya Campbell. Why is a part-time hourly nurse needed for the 2025 summer recreation camp, and what specific duties will Maya Campbell perform? What is the total cost of hiring Maya Campbell, including hourly wages and any additional expenses, and how does this fit within the camp's budget? What qualifications and certifications does Maya Campbell have to serve as a camp nurse, and was competitive hiring process conducted? What oversight mechanisms are in place to monitor Maya Campbell's performance?
5 minutes to go.
It's different agenda items. How am I 5 minutes up?
No, you only get 5 minutes total.
The lawyer just said I had 5 minutes.
Sorry, to clarify, you have 5 minutes during each privilege of the floor, and then 5 minutes during the any public hearing. This isn't, with all due respect, I don't think this is Congress where we could seat each other 5 minutes. There's, there are quite a few people
Okay, I'm done.
here in the hall, so we need to, give everybody their fair time. I think I can jump in on the competitive contracting. So with regard to the IT service, it's not a professional service. So professional services are an exemption to public bidding by which the lowest responsible bidder gets the contract. For professional services like legal, engineering, architect, those types of things that are regulated by the state, if there's a request for a proposal, the council gets to make their selection for a one-year contract based on whatever criteria that they deem appropriate. So this is a separate thing than that. With competitive contracting, what that means is that because it's not a request for professional services, but it's also not something that falls within the local public contracts law for bidding, it gets treated differently. So the administrator created a matrix for scoring and made it part of the resolution that was made public. So if any IT companies wish to submit for the consideration for scoring for the contract, they were given advance notice. It was published according to the statute. It was put in the Asbury Park Press, et cetera. So it was on our website. So anybody who wanted to reply would have had an opportunity to reply, submit their proposals, and then whoever we had that was scoring pursuant to the matrix would then utilize that matrix and compare anybody who submitted under the matrix. And in this particular situation, I think it was multifaceted because there was an option to do it just for the police department, to do it just for the town, meaning the civilian side, or for both.
So is it an MSP then? Is it a managed service provider? Or is it providing IT professional services or managed services, which would be an MSP?
I'm not an expert on IT lingo.
There's a very big difference.
Okay.
It's significant.
I'm going to have Ryan answer that. Hopefully, he might have more insight on that.
So he's providing managed IT services.
So he is providing managed services.
Correct.
He's not providing hosting capabilities cloud storage?
No.
So it's just strictly IT.
He may procure licenses on our behalf, but he or she, the entity, will not be the one providing the hosting services, et cetera.
I got a follow-up question. I don't know, what kind of service are they providing? That's my question. I actually had the question before John even answered it. Question, what are they here for? What are they doing?
Sure. So, so in the borough of Matawan, we do not have in-house IT staff. We do have a borough operations coordinator that assists currently with our external partner that manages IT with us on the civilian side. The police department also has an external IT partner. This actually was in response to the police IT vendor retiring. So it created an opportunity for us to go to competitive contracting, which is also why we provided 3 different scenarios to see if we could benefit from the economy of scale. Yeah.
Thank you, I didn't know what it was for. Thank you.
Okay. I don't want to take a minute. I don't need 5 minutes. First of all, I want to thank everyone for this proclamation for the Borough Council for Juneteenth. It isn't about us, but it's about the whole community as a whole. I have with me Cecil Bright, our president of Shore Knights, and Frankie Ellis is also in attendance. I just want to say thank you for the Juneteenth. It's, I think Matawan is one of the last towns to adopt it in Monmouth County, but Juneteenth has been going on now for hundreds of years, basically. And it's a celebration of when actually freedom that came apart in Texas to the last when the slaves were freed. So with that, I think we're going to do bigger things. Thank you to Kathy for coming up with some things and trying to include Matawan to be more inclusive instead of reclusive with the things with Keyport, Freehold, and other counties and towns in the area all through the state are doing. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to announce it. Thank you so much for your attention and your time. Hope you have a good meeting the rest of the night. I was here for 3 hours last night, so.
Mr. Butler?
Yeah.
Do you want to take the proclamation? It's right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Privilege of the floor?
The questions that I asked.
Sure. So so regarding the 160 Main presentation that I will give soon to follow, which I believe will and hopefully address many of your questions. Regarding the summer camp nurse, I don't believe we've addressed that just yet. The summer camp nurse, obviously, the functions that it will perform are for a nurse for the campers in the event that they're injured or sick. We've not traditionally had that. We thankfully sort of assessed it last year and feel that that is an important value add for the benefit and protection of our campers. And the stipend is $3,000 for the duration of the camp.
All right, anyone else? Privilege of the floor?
Carmine Caruso, 350 Forest Avenue, 2 R's. Not 1, 2. I've been a resident for nearly 40 years between 2 residencies here in Matawan. I've seen a lot of administrations sitting up on the dais, some great, some good, some bad. The majority of the council and mayor have been up there now for almost a decade. 10 years to do right by the residents, but now we're starting to see you haven't been doing right by us. Instead, you've done what is politically of an advantage to you.
I just want to mention this part of the privilege of the floor is for agenda items only. Later on at the end, you'll have privilege again to talk on anything, but this for now is for agenda items only.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to get another.
Yep. Is it? Which one are you talking about?
About the Main Street.
Okay.
Continue, change it, change the time. 10 years to do right by the residents, but now we're starting to see have been done right by us. Instead, you've done what is politically of an advantage to you. Regarding 160 Main Street, we learned last week where the minority of the council stands. Here to ask each of you of the majority, do you want this building to go up on Main Street in the heart of downtown historical district? I'm going to ask every single one of you up there right now. Ms. Gunn, what do you, yes or no? Do you?
I'm sorry?
Are you for this?
Yell out.
I recommend
Do
that
you, yes or no?
council wait until the speakers complete.
Can you finish your
What's
statement?
the problem now?
No, nothing. Just my advice was that.
Every time you interrupt, you're
All right,
taking my time
can you
away.
pause it, Karen?
I can't pause it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Just erase.
So the idea was for you
This
to.
is the third time you interrupted me.
No, I can't pause it. Oh, sorry.
Can you answer my question? Yes or no?
Am I for 160 Main Street?
Yes.
No, I do not want that building there. But it's not a simple yes or no question. It's a complicated issue. So I'm happy that you're here tonight and that you'll be able to see the presentation later. But no, nobody wants this.
But you voted last meeting that for to keep
Correct.
going.
Because
I'm
sometimes
asking you a question.
Correct.
Do you want this building? Yes or no?
No, I do want
Last
the
week you said
building.
yes. Now you're saying no.
You're conflating things. You're conflating things.
I'm not completing things.
So I'm not trying to interrupt you, sir, and your time's not running, but we want you to
No,
talk clear.
don't go by that time.
Okay, all right, so we want you
It's
to.
the fourth time you interrupted me.
We want you
ask the
to
next
talk
per-
for your
okay,
full,
I'm gonna ask the next
your
person.
full 5 minutes.
Mr. Fields, you,
Violence. And no, I do not want this building here either. However, this litigation that we've been involved in,
right,
which we shouldn't be speaking of anyways, to endanger whatever positive outcome we've managed from this. This is a measure to prevent an increase of development in our town. This is a worst case scenario. We haven't even voted on whether or not this is going to be built. This process this has to go through committees. This has to go through all kinds of things. We voted for a worst case scenario. We are losing a litigation and we have to protect this town. Nobody on this dais wants to see this building built. We have worked tirelessly to save the historic quality of our town. That's why we live here. That's why we've moved
That's why
here.
I'm up here.
That's why we've saved the blue house. That's why we've saved the acreage of green spaces on the lake instead of development. There is nobody up here that wants to see this built.
but
It's
why-
not that simple, and I'm sure in the presentation,
Well,
I think you need to understand what saying no means to this town and to your pocketbooks.
So to answer it from my side,
It's absurd. This is absurd. To assert that anybody here wants to diminish the historic value of this town is an absurdity. It's disingenuous, and I'm so upset to see this discontentment sown for political gain. I joined this council and this body, excuse me, I'm speaking, please. I joined this body to build community. Everything I do up here is to protect this town.
What are we doing on
The
this?
historic, excuse me, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to get answers, but now it's all contradicting to one another.
That's right.
Last week was not.
What happens is when things become partisan, you get contradictions because there are disingenuous. I'm sorry, I love everybody in this audience and I want to make sure that they are informed and understand why we're making the decisions we've made. But the hostility and the arguing is dividing this community, and that will serve nobody here.
Let's give them all the facts then.
Let's give them the facts.
All right, you had your time to speak, let me speak.
Well,
Let's give them all the facts.
Can I just interrupt for a moment? Because I actually agree with you, Councilman Ross. I do think that we're essentially putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit. I'd love the opportunity to give the presentation, which will speak to a lot, I think, of the concerns, which will certainly not limit the public's ability to come speak during the public hearing, which everyone is allowed to ask questions of. But I think it would be helpful to at least have that opportunity before we start sort of this dialogue about 160. I think the background is helpful to inform the discussion. So I essentially, if I may ask, certainly I'm not telling anyone they can't come up now, but there is an opportunity to vote it just for the public to ask questions once 160 is voted on, not voted on, is moved in the agenda. So I'll give my presentation. Christopher Insignaro, our Affordable Housing Council, will give a presentation, and then it will be opened up to the public again to have their ample opportunity of each person that wants to come up to register their complaints and address the governing body.
So can I continue? I mean, you know, come on, you interrupted me 5 or 6 times. I understand.
You're gonna
I
have-
appreciate him, I appreciate him answering the question.
Nobody wants it. Nobody. You don't want it, we don't want it.
Exactly, I don't want it, you know?
Well, you understand why you have to say no.
I dedicated 50 years,
Absolutely.
firefighter in this town. Matt Aberdeen, and I'm here, resident here, and
Services
I did both, okay? People in this town here know who I am, majority of them. I dedicated my life. I pulled 2 people out of a building already, twice, since I was in the fire service for 50 years. It's no pleasure. And now you're gonna put a building up like that on here? No.
Sir, if we could let the next person speak.
Yeah.
And let's not interrupt anybody. Let's let them have their full 5 minutes is my suggestion, and then we can answer any questions from the
Well, if
council.
I have something else, I want to finish another.
Yeah, you're gonna have a chance. You're gonna have a chance again to speak.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephanie Buckle, 14 Chestnut Drive. I just want to say that I think it's highly disrespectful to claim that this entire room of residents who love their town and want to preserve the history of the town are here for political purposes. You actually owe the room an apology for that.
I'm not saying they are politics.
That's what you said.
They are being motivated by politics.
We're being motivated because we love this town and we
But
want to
you don't
preserve it.
understand
It has
the
nothing
basis
to
of
do
what
with
we're arguing
politics.
about. It's
It's just
disingenuous
not a nice thing to
arguments.
say. And like
You're
I said, you owe
arguments that
the
don't exist.
room an apology.
Hi, Melissa Marinaccio, 3 MacArthur Drive. I am a 3rd-generation resident. My children are the 4th. We've been to the high school, all the schools. Really disappointed. This is about 2512. And since we're talking, I don't know what your party affiliation is. I'm here as a longtime resident. I'm upset. We need schools and fire, and we're talking about this. And I know you guys are doing the best that you can, but let's do a little history lesson. 140 years ago, we became a borough under the township. 10 years later, we became our own. Okay, that was because of politics. Okay, I don't see 140 years later why we have 2 towns with the same shared school and some resources. I have to go to township to get a permit in the borough. You know, we have shared services. Has anyone looked into maybe telling the state, let's wait for this low-income housing because township has it? Maybe we should think about merging with them and contacting the state and asking them to do a study to see about consolidating. And I know 30 years ago, my mother told me that the cops didn't want to do that. And, you know, maybe we can make it right for them and they can still keep their benefits and their, you know, their seniority. And then as they topple down, they start, you know, retiring. We should change that up a bit. But we're going to need more cops anyway, more fire, because look at what's going on over at Glassworks. So have we looked at that? We keep talking about lawsuits. Listen, I know lawyers. They all talk in circles. They all know what they do and what the judges say. Been there, done that. Let's try. This is our money, and we love it here. And I'm not here because of what my party is. I'm here because I live here. I love this place. My grandfather built a house in 1954 in Cliffwood Beach. My cousin still lives there. My aunt lives on Jackson Street. My parents are in Mark Woods. They own a business here. My brother and sister used to live here. They moved to neighboring towns. I don't want to have to do that. I want you guys to look for solutions, okay? And you had an ego last time, and you're getting upset last time. We are all a community, okay? And we pay you. I know you answer to them, but we pay you. Last time someone asked if we could buy that land and you want talking in circles, the answer was yes, with a long explanation. Yes, there's a possibility. There's always a possibility. There's always a loophole. Trust me, I can tell you the story of my life. I went from everything you can imagine, and then adult decisions screwed it up. And I find a loophole and a way to get around it so I show my children a better way. This is our town. Show us. Why don't you talk to the township? We can help them and they can help us. And they have a cheaper tax rate. And we're losing businesses to them. We don't have room for this. If you love it and you don't want that building, let's look for solutions. There's always a way. You just have to try. And it is our money, and you're wasting it on things we don't want. So let's push back. There's going to be a new governor this year. No matter which one it is, they're a new governor. Let's say, give us a break. We need to talk to our town that we work with every day with our schools and everything else. These are our needs. We need fire. We need schools. We need more police. We have people growing. We need infrastructure. Who's talking about that? I didn't come to zoning last time, but I heard it wasn't open. I don't know if it was open to everyone. I have 4 kids, okay, and one with special needs. I don't have time, but I will make it. You will see me here every meeting going forward. I want solutions. I don't want to hear talking circles. If you really care, let's all come together and find these solutions, okay? If you need another history lesson, we're here.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Anyone else, privilege of the floor?
Good evening. My name is Veronica Bishardi. I live at 914 Highway 34. For 30 years, I lived in Aberdeen, and for the last 42, I have lived in Matawan. I have seen many changes in both towns. And I've also been part of many lawsuits from previous administrations. The last administration before Restore Matawan took over, one of the things that happened during that last campaign was the 5-story monstrosity right next door and the building on Main Street. And that was part of your slogan, to restore Matawan. And now you're talking about putting another 5-story building in the historic city, on Main Street. So were you right when you were doing your first campaign, or are you right now? You can't be right both ways. And I understand the legality of everything, but a 5-story building is not for Matawan, and it's definitely not for Main Street. Because if you're going to vote for this, and I strongly recommend that you vote no and go back to the drawing board and come down with something a little bit smaller, something that will fit Matawan's Main Street. Because if you can't do that, then maybe what you need to do is change your campaign slogan from Restore Matawan to Replace Matawan, because that's what this building's going to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. I think it would be beneficial, as the administrator referenced, for everybody to listen to the presentation that's going to happen, because it's not a 5-story building, first of all. So it's really important to everybody to get the facts. So I hope everybody is here for the presentation.
Good. Anyone else? Privilege of the floor? So noted. Motion to close, privilege of the floor?
Motion?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under old business, ordinance 25-12, an ordinance of the Borough of Matawan and the County of Monmouth and the State of New Jersey to amend Chapter 34 entitled Development Regulations to create 160 main mixed-use district on Block 27, Lot 2 in the Borough of Matawan and provide appropriate development regulations therefore. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
I'm sorry, can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
I knew what you meant, Mayor. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay, so thank you. So projected onto the screen my presentation so you can read along and look as well, and it will also be posted online afterwards. navigating affordable housing.
Excuse me, if everybody could just quiet down so we can hear the presentation, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
So a presentation regarding the ordinance 25-12 is a proposed zoning overlay for the property 160 Main Street. Obviously, so I will, for historical background, I thought it was important that we understand how we got here with affordable housing rounds. So the first round began in 1975 to 1983, solidified with the first Mount Laurel decision, which is initiated the constitutional obligations for towns to provide affordable housing. At that time, no formal administrative framework was put into place. From the second round, which consisted of 1983 to 1993, potentially up to 1999, Mount Laurel 2 was decided in the courts, and the Fair Housing Act of 1985 was established, and established the Council on Affordable Housing, also known as COA, which assigned obligations and reviewed compliance. The third round, 1999 to current day, July 1st, 2025, was delayed in a litigated round. COA attempted to put in regulations, which were later found to be invalidated. On March 10th of 2015, the Supreme Court ruled that COA was defunct, transferring its enforcement to the courts. Some municipalities began seeking immunity from builder remedy lawsuits through declaratory judgment actions, while others instead relied on the assumption that the housing stock was naturally affordable and already provided sufficient opportunity. The fourth round, which will be discussed yesterday at the Planning and Zoning Committee, and is also on for consideration a plan for the fourth round, which would consist of July 1 to 2025 to June 30th, 2035, was a statutory process adopted in 2024 by the New Jersey legislature, where the Department of Community Affairs will assign the obligations to each municipality, and then the municipality must adopt plans and submit them by certain deadlines set forth in that law. As an asterisk, the first three rounds are not as clearly prescribed as the fourth round is, so the dates are a little bit sort of not as set in stone as the fourth round, so I just wanted to make that distinction. Okay, understanding builder remedy lawsuits. In 2021, as I mentioned earlier, the Borough filed what I mentioned earlier, a declaratory judgment action. Days later, the property owner for 160 Main Street filed what is called a builder's remedy lawsuit. Following that, a 3-year period of litigation and negotiation with the developer ensued. Throughout that process, the Borough of Matawan was able to be granted temporary immunity from any additional builder remedy lawsuits. So that was the only lawsuit and we currently enjoy that immunity as well. On November 12th, 2024, the Borough Council unanimously approved the Resolution 24-11-18, which includes numerous terms, including the requirement that following the court's approval of the settlement agreement, that the Borough Council must adopt a rezoning ordinance that is established consistent with the concept plan, which is why we are here today. Additionally, not to sort of blur the lines, but as I mentioned, fourth round, we're required to do a plan. So in order to enjoy the temporary immunity that we have, that we gain throughout this legal process, we need to submit a plan for a fourth round obligation. If we submit that plan tonight, if it's approved tonight and submitted tomorrow, it will go through a process. There will be an appeal process. But once that it is approved, we would enjoy immunity for the entirety of the fourth round. And for those that may not know, a builder's remedy lawsuit is a specific legal action that available to developers when a municipality is alleged to have fallen short of its affordable housing obligations under the New Jersey Constitution. That the developer offers to include affordable housing units and gains the ability to challenge and override local zoning laws that would otherwise restrict their development. Why the borough chose to settle. And again, this settlement agreement was authorized by the council in November of 2024 at a public meeting. The legal reality that courts consistently side with builders in these cases. New Jersey municipalities are constitutionally obligated to provide affordable housing. Municipalities have recorded no victories in builder remedy lawsuits. Financial considerations. Continued litigation would mean legal fees, expert costs, and an unlikely favorable outcome. Local control. The settlement allows us to retain some control over the outcome rather than facing a court-imposed development. If we don't adopt the overlay and follow through with the process, we face serious consequences. The settlement could be avoided, sending us back to square one, and we could be subject to a larger, denser, court-imposed development, potentially the original 54-unit proposal or larger. The settlement achievements. The original proposal of the 160 Main was 54 units, 4 stories with no design standards. After the 3-year period of negotiations, the borough was able to get a reduction in the units to 46, 8 of which will be affordable. It's an elimination of an entire story, so it's now a 3-story building with a partially underground parking, and enforceable architectural standards, and that the developer is responsible for all infrastructure costs related to the development of this property. I've mentioned this a little bit before, but I wanted to go more into depth so that we can understand if it's not adopted. Choosing not to adopt the zoning overlay will lead to increased legal costs. Without a settlement, the borough would face escalating legal fees, court expenses, potentially draining public funds with no guaranteed outcome. Loss of control over development. Avoided settlement means relinquishing control over key aspects like building height, unit count, and architectural style, leaving the decision solely to the court. Risk of court-imposed larger outcome. The most likely result would be a court-ordered development, potentially far more dense and less aligned with community character than the current negotiated terms, potentially the original 54 unit or larger. Additionally, by rejecting the zoning, we jeopardize the current court-granted immunity that we enjoy from other builder remedy lawsuits, potentially subjecting the borough to multiple simultaneous legal challenges from other developers all over the borough, not just this property. The zoning overlay process. The first reading was introduced at the last council meeting. The planning board reviewed it for its consistency with the master plan. It unanimously moved it forward back to the council tonight for second reading and potential final vote and adoption or rejection. This, however, does not mean that the property is approved. It still will need to go through the site plan review process that any other development would have to go. And with the site plan review process will deal with things like traffic, parking, stormwater infrastructure, neighborhood impact, all of the things that are typically studied throughout throughout any development will be required as part of the site plan review process. So this is not the last time. It will be before a decision-making body. Affordable housing is a constitutional mandate. The New Jersey Constitution enshrines affordable housing as a constitutional right. It is further enshrined in the Mount Laurel decisions, landmark court rulings that municipalities are mandated to provide housing opportunities. Local zoning cannot be used to exclude lower income residents, While we understand and respect the desire to preserve Matawan's historic character, it's essential to recognize that affordable housing is a constitutional obligation in New Jersey. Courts have consistently ruled that the obligation takes precedence over local zoning preferences, even those based on aesthetics or preservation goals. Addressing community concerns, historic status. 160 Main Street is not a state or federally designated historic site. It sits within our downtown preservation district, which is a local zoning classification, not a formal historic protection. Property ownership. The protection and the settlement run with the land. Any future buyer or developer must comply with the same limitations, unit count, building height, and architectural style. Transparency and legal limitations. We've heard the criticisms about perceived lack of transparency, and I want to be clear that we take transparency very seriously. During litigation, we are advised not to publicly discuss or debate the matters, including with residents or open session. Doing so can expose the borough to greater risk for future litigation or jeopardize our legal position. Because the settlement is still pending final court approval, we still remain legally constrained in what we're able to say. And we understand that that's frustrating and confusing for many, including ourselves. We would love to speak freely about this. But the legal limitations are necessary to protect the borough and ensure the best possible outcome. Moving forward, protect Matawan and minimize the risk of the court-imposed development. Fulfill our obligations, meet the constitutional affordable housing requirements. It's a pragmatic approach, balancing competing interests for a better outcome, and preserve the character, maintain architectural harmony with surroundings. And last night, the Planning and Zoning Board members were very, very firm in reiterating their commitment to doing that and through the site plan approval process. While it's not an ideal decision, it's a necessary and responsible one. We're not rubber stamping the development or surrendering to a developer. We've navigated a complex legal landscape in a way that minimizes harm, preserves community character, and protects Matawan from greater risk. To walk away from the settlement would put millions of dollars, the integrity of our zoning code, and the fabric of our downtown at further stake. These are the elevations or images presented by the developer. As you can see from Main Street, it is 3 stories. From Jackson, the parking underground is partially exposed due to the elevation of the actual street. And I'll ask for Christopher Zingaro, who is our affordable housing attorney, who for most of this case can speak to sort of finishing up this presentation. Is it on?
Hit the red one.
Just speak up.
How's this now?
No, I don't know.
It's not.
You want to take
Now?
the microphone?
The red one. No.
Hold it down.
Right.
Oh, my.
You want this?
Rob's an expert on that one.
Good.
Let's try again.
No.
Then why don't you just project your voice?
Well, it won't be recorded.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob broke it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, council. So I'm part of a legal team that has worked on this litigation with the borough since 2021. This is just a few.
Yeah, they can't hear you.
Good, but not good. So I've been with a team that has been assisting the borough throughout this litigation. So a few points to identify. First of all, the presentation set forth a very good recitation on the Mount Laurel Doctrine. A few points as to the Mount Laurel Doctrine before addressing some of the specifics about the lawsuit and how we've gotten to this point. So the Mount Laurel Doctrine comes from a series of cases of case law beginning in the 70s that's developed at the Supreme Court level. It identifies that municipalities have to provide the zoning mechanisms, sufficient zoning regulations to ensure that each particular municipality can meet its fair share of the regional need for low and moderate income housing. The doctrine has taken many twists and turns over the years. In 2016, the Supreme Court rendered a very significant decision that found that the courts would be the primary place of jurisdiction for municipalities to come forward and establish that they've met their constitutional obligations. Now, as part of that, municipalities could obtain immunity from, as noted in the presentation, builder remedy lawsuits. The prior round began in 2016, and as noted in the presentation, a number of municipalities, many municipalities across the state, elected not to file actions with the court because they believed that they had the zoning mechanisms in place. In the situation in Matawan, Matawan was presented a proposal by a developer for a 5-story building with a significant amount of units. And it was very clear that it was necessary for the borough to move to court to protect itself, not only from this builder, but also from other builders. By reaching the courthouse first and filing a declaratory judgment action, the borough was able to establish immunity from all developer lawsuits except for the 160 Main. The court made a decision to allow 160 Main into the case and consolidated the builder's challenge with the borough's declaratory judgment action. So this builder's remedy lawsuit has been moving through the courts, and at the same time, we have continued to preserve the ability for the borough to block any other builder remedy lawsuits. A few comments on how the builder remedy process works. Once a proposed settlement is reached, it's brought to a governing body for approval. Upon approval, it then has to be presented to the court. The court needs to review that and determine whether or not the settlement is fair to low and moderate income households. And then upon its approval, any ordinances that are necessary to enact that settlement, to make possible that proposed project, have to be adopted by the municipality. Ultimately, after adoption of any necessary implementing ordinances, the matter returns to the court, and the court issues a final decision. Let me just note several items of note in the settlement. This project came in, was presented as a four-story building with more units than we settled for. It had no proposed architectural renderings. It was a shoebox that landed on Main Street. The settlement during the settlement process, the borough was able to obtain significant architectural concessions that have actually been placed into the zoning ordinance itself. So no matter who owns this property in the future, they will have to substantially comply with the architectural details set forth in the plans. As was noted in the presentation, this is certainly not a approval of the project. What this does, this ordinance places into effect the zoning ordinance by which the owner can build if they'd like to build. They might end up doing nothing, but the borough will have reached its obligation to at least zone for the possibility of a project. I think we'll take it there, and then if there's any further comments, I'll certainly address them.
All right, so what I'm going to do is open up first, what did we get, a motion? We did a roll call?
You don't need a motion right now.
So,
I actually have a question.
I have a couple of
hold on, yeah, first I'm going to take some.
Hold on, I got a question.
Anybody from the dais wants to go first, and then we'll go open up to the public. Yeah, you got something?
Yeah, I do have something, because I was privy to these conversations for a couple of years, and I spoke to you a couple times about this. You never once mentioned. You can't hear me, really? I think my wife heard me. Anyways, you and I had several conversations on this whole process.
Please speak up. We can't hear you clearly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, you and I spoke several times on this situation. You never once mentioned to me about changing the ordinances. It was always about the number of units. Why did you, as our lawyer, would not tell me as a councilman, part of this conversation, hey, by the way, as part of the settlement, you got to change your ordinance?
Well, I'm sorry.
You tell me to read the settlement, Ryan, I know, but I pay a lawyer to tell me certain points.
I reviewed the resolution that was unanimously supported by the governing body.
Again,
2024. The resolution itself states it. And I'm happy to read it for you.
I can also just speak to that a little bit.
Sure.
So what was approved in the settlement agreement?
Yeah, my question to you, as our lawyer,
I'm going to
and in numerous conversations we had, you never once mentioned, regardless what's in the resolution, hey, by the way, as a part of this resolution, you need to change your ordinances. Because had I known that, I wouldn't have voted for it.
Well, let me...
Again, as a lawyer, you should tell us, these are their key points. You have to do this, this, and this. Not just change the amount and the quantity of the
so let me try to explain this. So first of all, I'm not going to divulge conversations in executive session. If that's your interpretation, I'm going to leave that to be. Set that aside. Let me just practically. What this ordinance does is make possible the project according to the very terms in the settlement agreement. Now, what the ordinance does is put into place the bulk standards, the very terms of the settlement agreement. It is simply the procedural mechanism to create the opportunity for the project that was approved, reviewed by council. So there's nothing in this ordinance that is not, in fact, that is not mirrored in the settlement agreement.
No,
so
that's part of my issue.
And listen, the settlement agreement itself also identifies, and I'm not going to go back to what might have been said or what was clear in each council member, for each council person during executive session, but what I can say is the settlement agreement that was presented certainly laid out that there had to be an ordinance that effectuates the settlement agreement. But this ordinance does not go beyond the settlement agreement.
Okay,
It
you're
doesn't.
missing my point.
Yeah.
You only told us the settlement was from 56 units down to 44 units, 8 being affordable housing, 46, 8 being affordable housing, and 38 market rate homes. That's all you told us. That's all you told. That's all I know. But wait a minute, I didn't want to go to court with you. You said, no, I can't go.
Yeah, Councilman, listen, our executive sessions.
The issue I have here is I'm a lawyer. It's prudent for you to say, hey, just be clear. This is what's going to happen. All I know is that I voted on his ordinance was we got to knock down from 56 to 46. Okay, great. So we're on to before. It's the best of the worst case scenarios. Had I known, I don't know what the rest of the council knows here or wants to admit to, I would have said, you know what, keep fighting it. So I'm not changing my ordinances for this guy.
Yeah, council, listen.
The person bought a commercial property and took a chance.
Councilman Ross, it was in the resolution that we all passed in November. So are you saying you didn't read the resolution?
When my lawyer tells me that the settlement is from 56, whatever it is, down to 46, and that's all he tells me, yeah, I'm taking him on as a lawyer, because we're paying him a fee. Do I read every ordinance? No, I don't read every ordinance.
Okay, well, that's on you.
No, it's not on me. It's on my lawyer to tell me what is in it, because it's a settlement. It's not a lawyer's a park or something, or a traffic light. This is a lawsuit against my town that I pay a lawyer to tell me what it's about. It's pretty simple. If you're not going to get the information from a lawyer, then why am I paying him? I'll do it myself.
Yeah, Councilman, all I can tell you is that we had very extensive discussions.
I was part of it, and you never once mentioned we have to change the ordinance. Come on, Rick. I mean,
Councilman.
All right, anyone else?
I just need to clarify a few things. Ryan, in your presentation, you mentioned that that a municipality opens itself to a builder's remedy lawsuit by not fulfilling their obligation of affordable housing units, correct?
I said that builder's remedies lawsuits are a legal mechanism for a builder to make a claim that if a town has not adequately met their affordable housing needs, that they can challenge and potentially override local zoning that would restrict their development.
So I just want to clarify that, because last night at Planning and Zoning, when I asked that same question, it was answered that that was not the case. It was the fact that because we didn't have a fair housing plan that was put into the master plan, that's what opened the door for the litigation which hit us. So I guess I'm clarifying which is it, because according to that plan, we have 305 units that is posted online, it's public knowledge, 305 units when we only needed 298, which means that at the time of this litigation, we had 297, but nobody wanted to admit to that number last night either.
So if I may, so part of the 305 unit amount that we get to, and part of this plan that will be before the borough, before the council for consideration later this evening. So part of that plan takes into account other developments in the town that haven't even been built yet. And I believe the attorney last night was trying to get at that. There was no way to sort of have that plan in that moment because these things are constantly developing. So it takes into account 114-116, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board in 2023. That's part of the third round compliance. So we received this lawsuit in 2021. So part of the numbers that are towards that 298 number, which we come up with 305, we just didn't have those numbers then.
And I guess my question, so if we would have had this plan, which is now also on the agenda tonight, if we would have had that plan and that would have been put into effect prior to 21, we wouldn't have been open to this litigation then, right?
Again, I believe, Chris, if you want to take it.
Sure. So
it's a yes or no.
There's no way of knowing that.
And that's what Mr. Gordon last night was trying to get at. There's no way of knowing. That's why the answer is not a yes or a no, unfortunately.
So if we would have had the units that we needed and we would have had a plan, we could have still been open to an affordable housing / builder's remedy lawsuit, yes or no?
So the way it would have worked is in 2016, a plan might have been presented and the court might have said, you have no projects on the ground. It's hard to know how a court would have reviewed a plan that had no boots on the ground projects. So it's almost impossible to know how a court would have handled this situation in 2016.
I'm not asking about 2016, I'm asking about 2018, when the master plan was amended for the train station. If they would have put the plan in there then, would we have avoided a 2021 litigation? 90% we probably would have gotten out of it?
So yeah, I can answer it like this. If you had gone to the court and said, hey, we have a train station redevelopment area, please give us a judgment of compliance or repose that gives us immunity from lawsuits. The court would have said, okay, so you have a train yield of X amount. Where are the rest of the units coming from? And I guess at that point, you could have opened up lots of places in the town for development. That was one possible way this all could have worked. So yeah, you can't just simply look at the train station area and say, hey, we had a train station area, we could have gone to the court and we could have protected ourselves. You had to establish other mechanisms to reach your third round obligation. Now it's possible that by not filing a housing element in fair share plan, if you had made it to 2025 without the builder suing you, you might have had zero obligation for the third round. So there was some, cut the lawyer up, right? I'm saying that there's a lot of hypotheticals, and it's very possible that you might have gone to court on trying to rely on the train station redevelopment area, and the court would have said, no way, that doesn't cover your obligation.
But we would have had a plan on the books at least.
You would have had a plan and you would have had to find projects. So effectively what this plan does is implement, gets a third round plan done with a project that can yield units. I mean, one of the things to remember is that the court, in looking at this case, said you have a third round obligation, and I have a builder who is ready to build a lot of units. And as part of this, the court made it very clear, you have the risk of ending up with a judgment from me on the builder remedy suit that opens you up to a very large project. So the goal of this litigation was to reduce the potential scope of a project on Main Street. And that's what the zoning ordinance does, and it locks that into place for any future development that might come about here.
And it's 4 stories from Jackson Street view, but 3.5 stories from Main Street view.
Yeah, so what was proposed was 4 floors of residential initially. So that has been brought down.
Because he gets commercial on the bottom.
So we were able to reduce the actual commercial that was proposed.
We're reducing commercial, so he's not having commercial. It's all residential.
So there is a retail component that was built into the settlement, and that retail component has been retained in the ordinance that's before you tonight. It's the very same amount of retail space.
Now, in the settlement, is there an incentive for him to open that retail space, or do we have another Key Foods? I'll take that as a no.
I'm going to open it up to the public. At this time, if anybody from the public would like to come up in regards to ordinance 25-12, you may do so now.
Hi, my name is Abby Berg, 299 Broad Street. I just have a couple of questions, I think, for the attorney. So I'm glad that you're here because these are questions that I sort of asked last night and the zoning board kind of didn't have an answer for me. We have Sutton Point, Markhampton, and three Tree Haven apartment complexes, plus there's a spot, I don't remember what it's called, across from Ravine Drive School, okay? I understand how affordable housing works, that they have to be units that are always there, right? They're always available. It's not like someone has Section 8, someone has affordable housing, they come in. They have to be static units. I understand that. I guess I'll ask all my questions and you guys can answer me. My first question is this: what was stopping the people in this town, or is it even legal, to incentivize the apartment complexes to put a portion of their apartments into as an affordable housing apartment? So for example, Sun Point has 250 units. Are we allowed legally to incentivize them with tax breaks or other incentives, I don't know what they would be, in order to say, you'll take 25% of your units that we already have and we'll keep them as affordable housing? I know Markhampton for sure has affordable housing units in there that lots of times are used when people can't afford their rent and they go to landlord tenant court. There's a certain building that's all considered affordable housing and they move people around. So that's my first question. Since we incentivize Key Foods and lower their value and gave them a tax break, are we allowed, so my first question is, are we allowed to go through that and possibly incentivize all of these apartment complexes and actually see if we even have a lack of units? And then the other question is, and if that is allowed, can we use that instead of saying, oh, we're going to bow down and change the zoning? Are we allowed to then go back to the court and say, look, we counted again. We have a promise from all these complexes, and it'll give us not only what is allowed, but you are requesting from us or requiring from us, but even more, right? Because we love our community. That's my first question. My second question is, that building is really ugly, it's really disgusting, and you guys said that we are doing something to preserve the characteristics of our community. In zoning, are we allowed to be like the world's worst HOA and be like, you have to keep it looking like the Blue House, or it has to look like Borough Mansion, like the outside aesthetics of it? Can it be forced? I know that it doesn't happen mostly in this country, but in other countries, there are rules about what your areas, like what it has to look like, right? So yes, it's a big ugly building, right? But maybe if it looked a little bit more historical on the outside of it, instead of like a big office building, really is what it looks like. That was my second question. Also, my third question is, okay, how do I guess my other question is, in 2018, like she was saying, that we didn't, like, I'm not understanding why in 2018 we didn't put in like this amendment that we needed to do to possibly save ourselves, you know? I know we're gonna talk about a new overlay coming up, and I won't talk about that now, obviously, because the town hasn't seen it, but I just feel like if we want to do things like this, we need to put in senior housing, 55 and plus housing. You guys are talking about, you know, the demographics. I was at the Board of Education meeting. In 5 years, we have no more room, okay? We have 498 pre-K students that are in our schools right now, okay? They did a whole demographics. They invited the city council, like, according to the school board. I just don't understand where you want us to put our kids. Like where? And my last question is, I was under the impression that we don't have fire trucks that are tall enough to reach some of the buildings. So are we letting the residents know in the building in Walgreens that if, you know, like there's a fire on the top, I know we have sprinklers, but if the floor falls, like what if the next door neighbors we share services, what if they don't have the time? Or what if that happens? Like what are we gonna do to protect it? Can we force the builder to force them to buy us a fire truck? Force them. And you guys are talking about lawsuits. You had no problem making a $10 million bond for water that we didn't necessarily need. But now you guys are worried about a little lawsuit that the people who voted for you, right? We voted for you because we wanted you to represent us. And you're like, we're just going to lay down. We're not doing anything to make this better. And I know we all hate it. But like in 2018, you could have fixed it. You could have done something. And you didn't do anything. That's all.
Unless,
Did you want to answer?
do you want me to start? There. So I'll speak first to the idea of creating incentives for developers. Part of the mechanisms that can be utilized in affordable housing compliance are extensions of deed controls, which requires the use of extensive affordable housing funds. So one of the items that's being implemented as part of the fourth round Housing Element and Fair Share Plan is an affordable housing trust fund, which will collect monies, which can then be used to preserve affordable units in towns. So there are mechanisms that are afforded to municipalities in the fourth round to create those incentives. It takes a lot of money. So that is something that, as part of the fourth round, as part of the fifth round, in future decades, as other residents are here, that can always be pursued.
Can I ask a question? Like,
Let me just
make sure I understand what you're saying.
I'm going to just run through.
Okay,
points. So the planning board will have the opportunity to review the plans. This sets a minimum floor for the architectural design. So this sets a minimum floor that the planning board can take into consideration. That's that. And I think the other points went to administrative comment questions that I really can't speak to.
Chris, can you just address the fact that the other apartments were considered into the calculation in the previous rounds, please?
Yeah, sure. So affordable housing proceeds in 10-year rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those were longer because of litigation. If you identify existing affordable units, projects, you can obtain credits toward your 10-year obligation, let's say from the 1980s. You can use those existing buildings and to satisfy your obligation for that 10-year period. You can't do it again in the future. So there are affordable housing projects or projects with units that are deed restricted, are in some manner set aside for low and moderate income households. Once you get credit for those, you can't double dip and try to use those credits for your third round or your fourth round. And that's one of the burdens that municipalities hold, which is the obligation to create new zoning mechanisms to provide for future new construction. Every round creates a new affordable housing obligation. and this goes back from the start of Mount Laurel in the 70s, developed by the courts, is the idea that every municipality every 10 years has to create zoning mechanisms for new construction. If, let's say, there were in the 1980s so many affordable housing units that you covered your second round and you had some excess, well, you could push that into your third round. You could use it. You can't double dip. And so that's one of the problems that municipalities have.
But what I'm asking, which you didn't answer, is are we legally allowed to go back to the apartment complexes and incentivize them to create more affordable housing units within their complex? So yeah, I get it. Let's say Sutton Point has 10 that are already counted for and we can't count them going forward. Can we tell them, you know what, if you guys added, the G building and the P building, which are, 15 units each, and created those as only affordable housing, would that, first of all, is that allowed, right? Are we allowed to ask them and are we allowed to incentivize them to do that? And the second question that I had that I don't think you answered is, did you even try? Have we even tried? Is there any way to get around having to add more? Because if we can go back to the court, right, and say, oh, well, we were short 200, I don't know, let's say 68 or 69 or whatever you're saying, 100, easy numbers. And we have 4 complexes and they all agree to dedicate 25 apartments for this affordable housing. Will it get us out of this lawsuit? And now this builder can go jump in a lake and he built a commercial zone and we have a commercial zone and we've fulfilled our obligation. More, not from what we had, but can we do that legally, and why not? Why wouldn't we? What would be the downfall to trying, before saying this, what would be the downfall to trying to do that? That's my question.
I'll just make 2 comments in response. That's okay? One, what you're describing is a pilot.
Mhm.
So whether or not a pilot can be offered to an existing building that's already been constructed, I don't know right now. But you're effectively asking to hand out pilots throughout town. So I'll set that aside, because that's effectively, if you don't have cash in your affordable housing trust fund, you're offering a tax incentive through a pilot. So, okay, set that aside.
Are we allowed to,
Let me
just
get through my response.
All right.
I'm sorry. The second item concerned apologize. I just suddenly.
Right. Well, then I'll ask you about the pilot. So are you saying that when we do things like that, so did Key Food get a pilot because we devalued their property and now they're paying less taxes? Why can't we do that here? I understand what you're saying, okay? We have Aberdeen, who has a massive pilot project, right? That is in Glassworks. That's a nightmare. And I get pilots are not great, but I don't know, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I pretty much would agree to do anything other than build a monstrosity of a shoebox on Main Street and then have an overlay that we talked about last night from one side of 34 all the way to the other side of 34 and just basically let them run rampant. I already lost my house in Aberdeen because of the taxes here, a house that my parents bought in 1973, okay? I lost my house and now my rent is almost 4 times the amount and it's got less room. Right? So while we are sitting here putting $10 million in a bond for a well, why can't we put money in a bond to fix this and incentivize? I don't understand. I just feel like certain people on council are so willing to spend our money on stuff that we tell them not to. And then when we're like, please don't do that, they're like, we're going to anyway. And it's not appreciated. It's just not, The school system's not going to bother me. 5 years, my daughter's gone. I can't afford to live here anymore. But that means the 3rd generation of person in Aberdeen, another 3rd generation family is out of here. And if that's what you guys want to do here, then thank you for letting us know what you guys are trying to do. Noted. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh.
John Serto, 29 Crescent Place. Ryan, I want to go back to your presentation where you stated you take transparency very seriously and your timeline starts at 2021. In 2018, you revised the master plan and the borough failed to submit the fair share housing plan to the appropriate authorities until 2021. Why does your timeline start at 2021? Why doesn't it not start at 2018? I don't think we're getting the full story from anyone up there. There's very little transparency.
I'm happy to answer your question once you're finished with your comment.
I'm finished with my comment.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. I mean, I think to that point, then the timeline should originally start from the beginning of affordable housing in the state of New Jersey, because from all of the rounds prior to today, the borough actually has never, no, actually prior to 2021, the borough's never submitted a plan. So for over almost 3 decades, the borough never submitted a plan. And I don't, unfortunately, I'm not here. I can't speak to why that was never happened.
Well, someone else can. It's up on the council. They were here. There were others that can answer that question.
I don't think anybody was here since inception.
Not inception, 2018.
Oh, you were questioning the original timeline?
No, yes, your timeline starts at 2021. However, the revised master plan was done in 2018, and let me just get my information correct. And the fair share housing plan wasn't submitted to the appropriate authorities until 2021. So my question is, if you're very transparent, why are you starting your timeline at 2021 and not 2018? Because that's when this started and the borough failed to submit the plan.
I do appreciate the statement, but I do think that really the issue started in the 70s, and that's why my second slide began with sort of informing folks about the rounds.
I know, but this is not the 70s. This is 2018. I think that is a poor excuse of an answer, Ryan, to tell us that we have to go back to the 1970s. I want to know why 2018 you didn't start the timeline then. There has to be a reason. There really does have to be a reason.
I don't have a reason.
I think people up there do have a reason.
If I may, just briefly, the enactment of a housing element and fair share plan does not in itself mean that there's any requirement to submit that plan to the court to open yourself up to challenges by a host of builders. It's not necessary. What the importance of identifying the 2021 date is that is the date that the municipality elected in the light of a developer who was aggressively indicating that they would pursue legal action, chose to do so to block other developers from submitting. There are lots of municipalities that adopted housing element and fair share plans in the late teens and did not open themselves up to the Mount Laurel process. And a court that would have said, you actually don't have enough projects, find developers. So the enactment of a housing element and fair share plan itself doesn't obligate a municipality to subject itself to litigation.
So we waited, so we got sued to do this? Draw any question basically?
Yeah.
So we didn't do our, so 2018, 19, 20, 21, we all lived in lodge, nobody really bothered us because, okay, let's leave it alone. And in 2021, we got this lawsuit coming at us, oh, shit, let's do this now. That you're basically asking?
That's exactly right.
So, yeah, I got the same kind of question, actually. 2018, 19, 20, 21, we just sat back and said, okay, we're lucky, no one bothered us. The first time anybody bothers us, we said, oh, now let's do it. Why did we do it in 2018? I agree. Good question.
Thank you.
Meredith Copstead, 249 Harding Boulevard. I have a question. Has anybody on the council looked at the auction site or the listing for the property that's for sale at 160 Main Street? I know you did, Charlie. I have a concern that everybody up here is saying this is not approved, but the listing for the market says it's approved with the plan. So is it approved or is it not approved?
I saw that as well.
I posted about it on all of them.
But you can go right online.
Yeah.
It says approved. It's listed as for sale as an approved development site with 46 units. So the question is it approved or is it not approved?
Chris, can you answer that from a legal perspective?
Yeah, I'll set aside how people choose to describe their properties. Not going to comment on that, but I can certainly comment that the settlement was approved It was reviewed by the court, and what is here is, for first reading, there was the proposal of a zoning ordinance, and this is a second reading of that zoning ordinance. So as of today, the zoning ordinance has not been enacted, and if the ordinance is approved tonight, there will then be a approved zoning. The project.
Okay, so then it's not approved. It's not approved for sale currently if we have not approved the zoning. Is that an accurate statement?
No.
What I can say is that the.
Pipe down there, neighbor, pipe down. I'm just saying, if we are going to play a pun on words, it needs to be very clear to this community what approved is and what not approved is. If it's approved in its current state, as you've been showing us for, 3 weeks now? The 46 units, and can be sold as such, right? Because I'm a buyer. I'm going to buy that piece of property the way I'm seeing it listed. I'm not buying that property tonight saying I'm waiting for Matawan's council for the second zoning approval. It's an oxymoron on words. And some of us are just not that stupid here. And that's what it's making us feel like. So again, I have to present the question. If the seller is listing this property, whether it be auction or for sale, with the terminology approved with it, with this picture that was shown here tonight, is that legal? Because then that means it's approved.
Yeah, so what I can say is.
Yes or no?
So the settlement agreement provides the settlement agreement approves a project. The zoning has to be enacted. If the zoning.
But they're not selling a project, they're selling a piece of property.
If the zoning is not enacted, a future owner of that property could also go to court and try to enforce that settlement agreement to say, municipality didn't take the actions to make this zoning possible. I'd like to open up this case, and I would like to proceed with my builder remedy lawsuit. And I would like, at the end of my builder remedy lawsuit, to get 56 units out of this project or more. And the court might say, you know what? Yeah.
But they couldn't, because it's already approved at 46.
So no, what I'm saying is there's a settlement agreement that says we've reached a settlement to provide the opportunity for a smaller building. If the zoning is not enacted to make that possible, the developer can simply, or any future owner who assumes the rights of that settlement agreement, because it travels with the land, travels with the buyer, the buyer, can simply go to court and say, Borough didn't do what is set out in the settlement agreement. We would like to come back to court, open the case, open up to discovery, and we want a larger building. And the court would possibly grant a builder remedy lawsuit that opens up the parcel to even more development and potentially opens up the borough to other builder remedy lawsuits on this third round period. So,
but is the seller falsely advertising then the sale of that property with the picture?
I'm not going to speak to that. I represent the borough. I mean, I don't think you'd want me to speak to that.
Okay, so let's take the assumption that the seller of the land probably should not be selling the property with that approved status on it at this point in time. And I understand, Robert, why you wouldn't want to answer. And I do have one more question, since I didn't take the whole 5 minutes. When we were talking about the site plans, were the school zones and schools ever discussed in those plans yet? Because as Abby did state, within 5 years, the schools are done. They're crowded to this point. We don't have any more room. There's 500 kids coming into pre-K. So between the train station development, potentially 160 Main Street, and Glassworks, have the towns come together with all of these site plans and discussed the schooling solution?
So I'm happy to take that question, Mayor. So I actually did meet with the school district along with the manager of Aberdeen prior to their meeting to go over the demographic study that they performed. And the way in which it was presented to us is in the current districting of the students, the schools there will be a school that will meet capacity in sometime in the 30s. However, there are plenty of seats throughout the entirety of the school district. It will just require the school district to redistrict, which I understand can be a difficult, challenging thing to do, but there are ample seats throughout the school district.
So we're increasing capacity in the town by almost 30% over the course of the next 10 years. And based on the current infrastructure of schools, we have enough seats?
Yes. And
somebody sell me the silver lining, because this is not accurate.
No way.
And the approved for sale site.
In the audience,
Okay,
please.
go ahead.
Come on up.
My name is Gene McDonald. I live at 7 Crown Place, Matawan. Gene McDonald. I live at 7 Crown Place, Matawan. I don't need a microphone. I'm used to filling courtrooms with my voice. I'm one of the few people in this room, the only one in this room, that knows a lot about the Mount Laurel decision. I was involved in representing the insurance company who produced the bonds for the city of Atlantic City in 1978, 79, 80, 81, and 82. The public here has a real right to know, and so do you. And as was famously said in one of a great movie with Rod Steiger, what we have here is a failure to communicate. And we don't communicate because we don't have all the information. And I put it to council here. If your law professor did a good job, you would know that this is the only cockamamie, stupid decision in all 50 states. Not one of the states in the union has such a cockamamie decision. I put it to you that neither one of you had that in the property courses that you had in your law schools. It's a hot button decision. And why? It's a product of the Wellens Court in the 70s. In the Wellens Court, and I don't care if I go over the time limit because I think these people need to know, and so do you. Now, right now, the township of Toms River wants to take away the property that belongs to the Episcopal Church for affordable housing because it's being rammed down their throat. That's been on national news. A 250-year-old farm in Cranberry is being jammed. Right now, the president and owner of the Minnesota Vikings, and we don't want to know where he comes from, he wasn't born here, you can think what you want, decides to sue the borough of Mountainside, going to ram it down their throat. They're all over this state. And while it's not political, there are two people that are running, and one's going to do one thing and the other one's going to do something else. So you better be prepared, you better read, and you better get intelligent about who's going to run this state. The Supreme Court came up with this, the Wellens Court did, because we had to do something for the cities. The legislature at the time had no money to put into the cities. So how are we going to do it? There was a famous book about cities, the vanishing right, whatever, called the donut effect. And all the suburbs and in the center is the donut. How are we going to get money there? Council over here made reference to the trust fund. Yes, you don't see that happening to Homedale. You don't see it happening to Colts Neck, zoning, 10 acre. I've argued, and it's being argued now by other towns, that it's a racist decision. You betcha. Homedale, you can assess yourself a lot of money, put it in the trust fund, we've already talked about that, put the money aside. How much do you need, Newark? We need $6 million out of you. Okay, everybody say aye. We assess ourselves $6 million in taxes. Homedale raises $6 million. Here it is, Newark. Goodbye. Is that racist? You're damn right. Because Homedale continues to become whitey and Newark continues to become black. whatever else, minorities there. Let's call it what it is. And those cases are now before the Supreme Court. So in answer to counsel's question, I don't know, well, I'll give you one. Yes, it's all up in the air, but I have always taken a position as an attorney, and why I've never starved for lack of work. Like Patton, I don't wait for the enemy to come to me. I'm going after the enemy, and I'm letting you know what I got. Now, when I was on this council, I pushed very, very hard to get a historic district. Can't do that. Don't tell me how to paint my house. Well, here's what you got, town. You didn't want to do it then. And now you got it. It's rammed up your butt. And so like everything else that human beings do, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Okay? So now you got a problem in search of a solution, or a solution in search of the problem. So you had at one time 10 solutions, and by each day goes by and each year you got crap and none. And you take your poison. And now we're asking, is there something we can do? Yeah. Put it off and wait like everybody else. Because the Supreme Court's not going to do anything that quickly. You're going to leave it up to some judge? Some judge is
So
going to
your
decide.
time is up, sir. It doesn't work that way. If you guys
Well,
want to talk.
Counselor, I don't want you spending my money. You live up in Madison, so does your law firm. You don't make money here. I've practiced law for over almost 50 years.
Well, you can
And I know
apply.
all the lines are buried.
You can apply here.
When I find there's 6 generations going to the cemetery.
Okay, thank you,
See,
sir.
you keep what, but don't tell me thank you.
Your time.
My tax dollars pay for you, sir. Thankfully, I don't have to live that long to put up with this. But what you build today is going to be here for tomorrow. And the next generation and the next generation. Go into the TD Bank and see the mural of the Shock House that was taken down, Skank House rather, was taken down to make room for the bank owned by Charlie Shock, the Farmers and Merchants. And that bank didn't even make 50 years. We're going to tear it down now. You can't put it back once it's gone. Learn something from the Catholic Church. They never give up their land because God ain't making any more of it. Put it off. And if you don't want to put it off, want to put it off, then get some other advice. Because, you know, like it's in I'm the Good Shepherd.
Sir, your time is up. Sir, your time is up.
You know, I live in a town. Get some advice from people that actually live here and care about it. Because what's going to be built here is going to be here for a long time.
Mayor, can you call order, please?
Anybody else? Anyone else? Privilege of the floor. So noted. Motion to close the public session.
There's another person coming.
Regina Hawn, Hawn, 222 Main Street. I have spoken at several of the other meetings. I think you're concerned about future lawsuits. You have to realize the incompetence expressed on these activities by this town for their past actions opens them to other lawsuits. In addition, I have given you my emotional comments on how wrong this can be for our community. I've worked very hard over the years to continue its beautiful historical character. You're working to defeat that. You're also not informing the public of everything that they need to know, even tonight with all the expressions of our attorneys. You're not telling them that if they go ahead with this action that's supposed to give us an immunity, it will only last for 10 years. And at the completion of those 10 years, that we will have to deal with this all again. And we will still be getting these kind of actions by the builders. Why are you only telling us the information that benefits your images, not the information we need for the rest of the public? You haven't been very good about coming forward and informing the public about these actions, about the lawsuits in 4 years. You haven't explained why you have done this to us continually over the last 4 years. Forget the 21 date, forget the 18 date. I'm talking about now. You're still not giving us the proper information we need, and you're not making those decisions based on the proper information.
Chris, did you want to just mention the 10 years? Each round is.
Sure. So I'll make 3 comments. 1, in 2016, the Supreme Court did not wait. Developers did not wait. They sued municipalities. Second, there was a note about what's called regional contribution agreements, which allowed for municipalities to shift their obligations to cities or lower income communities, which was certainly recognized by the court as an illegal process. That's not allowed anymore. So simply, the Supreme Court has reached a decision, and I'll set that aside. Let me just explain, just for the benefit of the public. Each round of affordable housing runs in 10-year periods. If you can establish that you have a plan in place to provide the zoning mechanisms, you are granted immunity from other developers coming in. So this 160 Main project fits into your third round process, your third round plan. It gives you the control to say, I have a mechanism, I have a larger plan, it fits in that larger plan, and that gives you immunity for your 10-year period.
And if you could just touch on 10 years, each round is.
Yeah, so by enacting the 160 Main ordinance, you have effectively said, I have a plan that gives me, that can be carried out over the 10-year period, and it locks out other developers from bringing a lawsuit against you.
Each round is 10 years, correct?
Each round is 10 years.
That I was getting at.
That's right, so.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Privilege of the floor? Somebody hand that microphone.
I listened to all of this, and this sounds like, to me, the borough dropped the ball at some point, and this is a CYA, and we're going to have to deal with it as the public. You're not being transparent. There's other information out there. We'll find it. We'll get it. But I know that there's other information out there. I mean, is it known that the mayor appointed his brother-in-law to the zoning commission and then chairman a couple months later? That's not transparent. I mean, how do we know what's going on? You don't tell us. We are in the dark. And all we get is thank you for your comment and no action. That's it.
Anyone else?
Do I get a chance to speak again about that vote?
I don't think you spoke in this session. Yeah, I don't think you spoke in this public session at all, did you? No, so yeah, come on.
You know my name, correct?
Can you please restate it for the record?
Yeah, no problem. Carmine Caruso, 350 Forest Avenue in Matawan with 2 R's. I started preceding a question and answering everybody's opinion, yes and no. I got as far as 2 people, and then it got to be chaos, whatever. Everybody up there says they agreed that they're going to vote no for this building. Now, on the record, everybody else agreed to that? No? A no vote?
I believe the question you asked if we wanted, the answer is no.
Right. Mr. Mayor, how do you vote?
We don't want anything that bypasses our zoning, but the state law is there and there's nothing you can pass up.
So that's a no.
The mayor doesn't vote.
I only vote on ties.
He can.
I only vote
be
on
the,
ties. I only vote on ties.
That's correct.
But we don't want, we really don't want developers coming in and bypassing our zoning. Nobody wants that.
So last night, the meeting was 2-3 hours, whatever. What got accomplished? Can anybody answer that?
What got accomplished? Were you at the plan?
For the zoning, what happened? What happened to the building? What happened to the zoning?
You want to answer?
So the planning and zoning board's role in this process is to review the ordinance for its consistency with the master plan. So the board unanimously supported that it was consistent with the master plan and sent it back to the governing body for further consideration.
So in other words,
It's a step in the process.
this is going to be another vote
Yes,
There'll be a vote.
tonight or?
Correct.
After the closing of this public hearing, there will be a vote of the governing body, yes.
Okay. So I trust that you all do the right thing for this town. Excuse me? Oh. Well, I got a lot of concern about the historical on Main Street in Matawan, and so do these people here. This is the reason why this place is like this. It could have been more people here, but the majority, you heard the people speak. Now you have to live with it, whatever happens. So make sure that everybody knows that does the right thing for this town. And you better sharpen your pencil on certain items, because one of the council members called you out on something that you didn't state. That's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, Abby Berg again, 299 Broad. I guess this is more to Brian, since he was the only one at the school board meeting or the pre-meeting that talked about the school demographics. I wish there were other people there besides yourself, because I think that you might have misunderstood what they were saying. That was not the message that the rest of the town heard. I guess I'm concerned on a twofold with this, kind of disregarding the schools, because last night at the zoning, they proposed a new overlay that is going to be from Esperitos on 34 all the way down to Mexitacos, I guess Mill Road. And I understand that they're doing it so we don't get into the situation again, like I get that. My question for that is, first of all, the Board of Ed didn't know about that proposed overlay. That's a concern for me, because that's a huge amount of people that we might possibly be opening up ourselves to bringing in, right? And my other question would be, I guess, when the vote goes through, let's just say, in theory, it gets voted yes tonight, right? And then we're gonna have these demographics. Are we going to pay someone to do a whole nother school demographic, or are we going to use the one that was already paid for by the Board of Education? Which obviously is not gonna be correct, because you guys are adding another overlay, a possible overlay that they have no idea about, you know what I mean? Which is, it's just weird. It's a huge amount of property to do an overlay. I can't imagine that last night was like the first time they thought about it. I think that it may not be a bad plan, the overlay. I think there's ways we can create it to be great, but why didn't you guys tell the school that, so that they can add it into their possible demographics so we can get a real count? And I think the other thing that you misunderstood was, when you look at the numbers, in 5 years, there's no room in the sense of, even if we rezone and move things around and put Cambridge Park as a pre-K to 5, if we change it, pre-K to 5 for all the elementary schools, including Lloyd Road and Cambridge Park, I think what the numbers were looking like, it only adds like 30 heads, like 30 seats per building. that's not a lot, again, so like, I don't know. I guess I'm concerned because you're the only one at that meeting, and I don't think that it was completely, I don't know. Why didn't we tell the board? Like, why are we not being transparent, right, with the Board of Education to let them know, like, hey, by the way, your demographics doesn't include from 79 to Mill Road. It's a huge piece of land. And granted, it might be a just in case or to save ourselves, and it may not ever get developed, but I think that the schools should have an idea of what possibly can be, right? Because they, more than this council and the Aberdeen Council, have been completely transparent. They have been fantastic with letting us know we're in trouble, we're trying the best we can. I don't know, that's my question. So those are my two questions about that.
So throughout the entire process of the demographic study that the school commissioned, they solicited from the borough all approved developments in the town, and we supplied them with that. They didn't contemplate zoning, and to your point, this may never come to fruition. So I think it would have been, I can't speak to them, but I would not have been able to tell them what to reasonably project into their plan based off of a zoning overlay.
Just something to note also, they said that their plan was also not completely correct because the numbers weren't right. The Matawan Borough did not give the correct numbers for all of the buildings. It's on the Board of Ed meeting. I was there. I go to most of them. So I think that's concerning. But again, you're saying like, we don't know what could possibly be. Well, like we can give them like, if every single building gets built up with a certain amount, right? Unless we keep it to veterans and 55 plus, you can assume that possibly, right? Because we never know, like maybe a 2-bedroom is going to have 1 kid, maybe a 2-bedroom is going to have 3 kids. Like you never really know, even with this affordable housing, because you can have a 2-bedroom house and that could add 3 people, right? You never actually know, but you can do a fair share of like guessing, like, okay, we have 50 buildings that are going to go up and they're each going to have 3 floors and the max that we're going to let them have is 50 apartments. In theory, out of those 50 apartments, maybe 10 will be affordable housing. Chances are they're going to have kids in it. You can make a guess. No one's making you stick to that number. But to not even consider mentioning to the Board of Education when they're doing something like that, that there's a possible massive overlay coming, it's irresponsible and it smells funny. It's fishy, it's weird. And you could say nothing's going on, but it's weird. It's just weird. Like, it's just weird. When you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
All right, anyone else?
Mayor, you said that that's the law. It is June 17th. We're going to have a general election in November. The developer can do what he wants. He's not going to get to court and get a decision by election day. One candidate is saying one thing and the other candidate is saying something else. So you all should pay attention. My fellow citizens, who's doing what? That's number one. Number two, let's look at the finances. The developer, and I don't think any of you know this, the developer doesn't put up any of his own money. I have a client I represent who has one of these going on down in Long Branch right now. The developer has to get bonds. I told you earlier that I represented the insurance company, the bonding company for the city of that put up the bonds in Atlantic City in the late 70s, early 80s. Now those bonds are put up and then the developer, he doesn't have any skin in the game. He's not putting up a dime. The bonding company, insurance company does, and they're backed by HUD, HUD, Housing and Urban Authority Development. Now once my client in Long Branch has 90% occupancy, he now goes from paying on those bonds, which is 18%, down to 3.5%, the present rate of the Federal Reserve interest rate. And he now owns that property, and he can pass it on to his kids, or whoever, or his girlfriend, and they collect the rent. Okay? They're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. Please, affordable housing, out of 46 units, only 8 are going to be affordable. What about the other ones? Oh, we're going to charge market rate for that. Don't be fooled. You want to go down as some of the other mayors and council people in this town has in history. My God, it's taken almost 100 years to get the Lake Lefferts, the dam rebuilt. And who was that named after? Jacob Lefferts. Anybody ever been to Queens, New York? Lefferts Boulevard? His family were big developers. You know, it's not that you don't know, you don't want to know. And even you people, you don't want to know. It's your town, for God's sakes. It's your God-given right. Or your atheistic right. I don't know. I have to be generic today. Whatever. For God's sakes, use your brain. Stop taking the crumbs they're going to give you and try to make a deal on some garbage. He's not sure. He doesn't have a crystal ball. And I don't even blame him. I wouldn't commit to that stuff if I was sitting here. He's got a law license to protect. And so do you, counselor. But then again, when I've been counsel to bodies, I keep my mouth shut and I let them do their job because that's what they're elected for. We're hired hands. Never forget your ethics position. I teach ethics and I tell them, you're an advocate. You don't take sides, you're an advocate. You don't play politics. It's vanilla or chocolate. And you don't get mad. Once you do, you lose your perspective. Use your brain.
Stephanie Buckle, 14 Chestnut Drive. I just have a question because earlier, I guess this is for the attorney over here. I don't know your name, sorry, I don't remember it. You had said earlier that if we had a plan, so for example, the train station we're developing down there, if we wanted to take these 8 units that they're giving us at 160 Main and move them there, and you had said that if we go up in front of a judge is going to say, well, you don't have boots on the ground, you're not moving on that property, 160 Main's ready to go, so he would rule in favor, most likely, of the builder. But since he's selling the building anyway, wouldn't that show the judge that obviously he doesn't have boots on the ground, he's not ready to build the building, and actually the train station looks like it's going to be moving at a faster pace if this guy's selling the building? So wouldn't that be a good argument in court if we were to fight it?
A builder remedy lawsuit was filed by a developer who said they had a piece of land that could fit affordable housing. If the ordinance is not enacted, you will have a developer with a pending lawsuit who can go back to court and can argue that they still have a piece of land that can be developed, or a future owner of that land can do the same thing. They have a settlement agreement in place and they have land that can provide affordable housing. So the municipality remains in a position of facing a developer with a builder remedy lawsuit who can try to argue for a larger project on Main Street.
What I'm saying though is that if we came up with a plan to put the affordable housing in the train station where we're going to be building, then wouldn't that be helpful to us? Because this guy, again, yes, he has property, it is developable, but he's not going to be doing it because he's selling it.
So this 160 Main project is part of a larger compliance plan for that third round period. That third round period includes a train station redevelopment area. It includes other projects that have been approved on Main Street with affordables. So it's part of a larger plan. If this ordinance were not approved, you would be in the situation of having a hole in your plan, an inability to establish that you have met your constitutional obligation to provide the zoning mechanisms for the third round period, which opens the borough up to a continued builder remedy lawsuit and a potentially larger project.
I kind of understand, but I guess, I don't know if you're understanding me, but just, so it's 8 units that's going into this building that are affordable housing, correct?
Yeah, so I will say one thing. This project actually obtained a 17% set aside, 8 units, which is higher than the typical 15% that municipalities would get from a developer of a rental project. So the agreement obtains a 17% set aside, 8 units. That's correct.
Okay, so there's no way though to work in an agreement. So I know you say there's a plan and it includes the train station, it includes other developments. So you basically have to have different sections. You can't just, you couldn't move those 8 units and try to negotiate with the builder at the train station to try to put those units there?
So the train station redevelopment area is not fully developed. So as part of the preparation of the housing element and fair share plan, a build-out analysis was conducted of how many units could potentially be generated from the train station redevelopment area. That analysis has to be presented to the court, has to be defended by the court. So the professionals came up with the best analysis they could, or the most responsible analysis they could as to what that yield could be. And the professionals determined that there's still going to be a gap. Now, setting all that aside, there is a builder remedy lawsuit that's pending. And that builder is in court and they have that litigation pending. If this does not go through, they can stand in place of low and moderate income residents to argue that the borough has not met its constitutional obligations. And if they succeed in that case, they would then have
But even if they're just buying this property now to sell it like that?
So the way it
So they
works,
still get away with that. That seems crazy, but.
so the settlement agreement is going, so that a future owner can still enforce that settlement agreement and can still enforce the builder remedy lawsuit. So, yeah.
No, because he's going along with filing the lawsuit, but he has no intention on actually even developing there, correct? That's why he's selling the property?
So the way it works is that the builder comes in and argues that the zoning mechanisms are not sufficient. And so that's the builder's burden to establish the zoning. So
is that kind of his reasoning for selling the property?
To answer your question, it seems, as best we could tell, that this was a soft developer, right, Chris? So basically, they took us to court, they got this settlement, they paved the way for the zoning. Now their intention looks to be, from what we could tell, obviously we can't get between their ears, but it seems pretty obvious from what they're doing on the website that it looks like they're going to now try to sell to a different developer who would then take advantage of the zoning and build. So, that's not uncommon, right, Chris, that you have soft developers then.
I thought that could be helpful if we tried to fight it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So this developer, I got a question. This developer wasted money in 3 years of court, of his own money, just to change the ordinance and turn around and sell the property. So he's put it for auction, hear me out, put it for auction. Say a resident buys it, does nothing with it. No affordable housing, no nothing, I'm probably the park things. How does it affect affordable housing? Because you've already got this in the master plan, supposedly. So to what Ms. Buckle just said, if a president buys that piece of property, now you can lose your 8 affordable housing. Something went before I get. You lose your 8 affordable housing.
So
then we reallocate it to the train station.
If
or somewhere else.
Your obligation is to create the zoning opportunity, not to build, not to ensure it's built. So by enacting this ordinance, you have fulfilled your, you've fulfilled your obligation. If a developer chooses not to build there and let it sit, the municipality has done what it needs to do, which is to put in place the zoning and a plan that provides the zoning mechanisms to reach its obligation number.
Okay, so the obligation number and the actual physical number can be slightly different. Like I said, if I want one land, did nothing with it. I don't want to fulfill their obligation. He as a developer builder didn't want to do anything with it because I don't think the time was right. Our units are, they have 300 units for the 308 units because in the plan. My question is, the obligation number whatever it is, versus the actual number, based on what builders build, it can be different.
Yeah, so to get back to your original question, Councilman Ross, I think what happened was this developer made a strategic decision. Whether it pays off for them, we're gonna find out. I guess we will never know what their legal bills were, but they made the strategic decision, fight for this, get the opportunity, and they ended up settling, saying, 46 units, 8 of them, affordable housing, and their hope is they could turn around and sell it and make a profit. And then what happens next, that's not gonna be set in stone, but at least they could sell it with the opportunity that the person could come in and potentially, build those 46 units. So their gamble is that they're gonna make money on that whole transaction.
Wait, then can I ask a question? Because you were just explaining to several residents up here that if this ordinance doesn't get passed tonight, that this developer can take us back to court, and then it opens us back up to further builders, remedies, lawsuits. However, before you pick up that mic, we're submitting this plan, which you just had a conversation with Councilman Ross here, that all we have to do is submit our plans of intention of opening up the opportunity for X amount of units. And as long as we fulfill our legal obligation to the state saying, we opened this up, we said that this is available, whether it gets developed or not, we did what we needed to do. So why are you scaring the public into thinking that we're just going to open ourselves up to more lawsuits if you're saying that if we submit this plan, we are protecting ourselves for the next 10 years? So if we're protecting ourselves for 10 years, how are you in the next breath saying that we're opening ourselves up to allow further litigation from other builders' remedies lawsuits from other developers? I'm confused.
Sure, I can try to explain that. So there are 2 rounds that are being addressed in the housing element and fair share plan. Your 3rd round and your 4th round. Each has a distinct obligation that is set by law, okay? The 160 main ordinance addresses your 3rd round obligation.
Right.
If the zoning is not enacted, there is no zoning to cover the entirety of the 3rd round. And you have therefore shown that you do not have the zoning mechanisms in place for that 3rd round. You might have the zoning mechanisms in place for the 4th round, but not the 3rd. And that's why the developer can continue with their lawsuit on the 160 main,
But you're saying further developers as well. Now, the bare minimum is 15%, correct? The legal bare minimum is 15%, right? That we have to ask for a developer to give us 15% of affordable housing, correct?
That is the way it typically.
That's the minimum, correct?
That is typically the minimum.
That is the typical minimum. Now, we were lucky enough to get 17%. We fought hard for 17%. Now, if we actually fought and required all of our developers to give us 20 or 25%, we would actually be over where we need to be. So we wouldn't have to worry if we didn't have the 8 units from 160. So if we actually redeveloped this plan before we submitted it on the 30th, and we said that we're requiring X amount of percentages, which is more than the bare minimum of 15%, we could actually save ourselves a lot of grief if this doesn't go through and the zoning isn't for 160, right? We would just have to require more from further developers. Is that on a page in there?
So what the 4th round plan does is create an overlay with 20% to capture units in that area. So what we're saying is future developers, you have to reach a 20% set aside.
So let's edit it to 25 and not change the zoning of 160.
So once again, the highway overlay is a 4th round mechanism. It's not a 3rd round.
Right.
So
this plan is for 3rd and 4th round, you just said.
So but the thing is, you have a builder remedy lawsuit that is already pending with the courts. So if you simply say, well, we've modified our 4th round mechanisms to capture more affordable housing for the 4th round, you still have a builder that is before the court with a builder remedy lawsuit. So they still have the ability to press their case.
I can guarantee a judge would probably laugh him out of court, being that he sold it. Yeah, so the fact is, but if you upped it to 25%, we would protect ourselves for round 4, and you wouldn't have to worry if we didn't pass the ordinance. for
Suzanne, you're
zoning.
wrong. I'll tell you why. He'll tell you why.
Well, no, I mean, I would ask Chris this way, and I think to this gentleman in the back's point, some of this, the laudable goal, obviously, of having affordable housing is something that the courts have recognized, but to the gentleman's point in the back, developers sometimes take advantage of that, and they're trying to make money. I think Councilman Ross's point as well. So isn't it an issue for a lot, it's hard, correct me if I'm wrong, you're more of an expert on this, but it's hard to get a developer to agree to, give more of a percentage of affordable housing than they want to, because they're going to make money with a lower number. Is that fair? So when you try to impose on them something like 25%, is that something that you think that the developers will take?
Let me say it like this. There are many municipalities in this state that are in planning regions, like up in the north, Morris County. Those municipalities actually are obligated by the state to pass a zoning ordinance that says anyone who builds has to provide a set aside of affordable housing. The regulations establish 20%. So the legislature looked at this and said, you know what? We want to obligate developers to build in these towns. And we've done an analysis and we see that 20% is the appropriate set aside. So there has been consideration into what is the right set aside to make projects financially viable. And so the standard has actually increased from what used to be 15% up to 20%. So there's a point at which if you you have to make an analysis of what are the actual construction costs, but overall throughout the state 20% is standard right now.
Okay, I understand what standard is. I'm just saying Matawan should, if we were looking forward for the community of what they're asking us to do. But these buildings that you're in an overlay in this plan, in this project for from 79 down Mill Road, are they mixed use with residential on the top and commercial on the bottom?
So although attorneys like to put planners' hats on, we have, when we get to the housing element fair share plan, some of these are technical engineering planning questions. I will defer to the planner to address that. I don't want to get beyond my skis into planning questions. So I can't speak to that particular part.
Okay, but you can speak to the fact that there's no law or legal reason that we can't push for 25%, because as you've heard in this room all evening, no one in this community really wants these buildings. So if we pushed for 25%.
The developer, right, they're in it for business, to make money, right?
Right.
That's why you're not going to get them to do 25%. It's not worth it for them.
Right, but if we put it in the plan, they don't have to build
You're
here.
not going to.
We just give the opportunity.
I don't think that's the case.
You said we had to give the opportunity, right?
So let me lay out the way the fourth round is going to happen. All right. So right now, the bill that was enacted by the legislature in 2024 set out timelines, and I reviewed this in other public meetings. On the 30th of June, every municipality that's participating in the program needs to submit a housing element and fair share plan. By doing that, you secure immunity from builder remedy lawsuits. There's a 2-month period until August 31st for builders to come in and file challenges. The adoption of a housing element fair share plan doesn't end this process. Developers can come in. If you're coming in at a percentage that simply does not make sense, it is possible that the borough will open itself up to challenges from builders who say that this is not a good faith showing of a reasonable set aside, and we're going to come in and challenge. So the borough is following guidance that has been guidance in the statute. It is following what many municipalities throughout the state are doing. You could have done a 15%, which is what some municipalities are doing. They're going for 15. You push it up to 20%. It's a good set aside, but there is a challenge period. And if you set up unreasonable expectations, it's possible that you have developers come in and challenge you. So that's what I can speak to.
Can you put anything in the plan about veterans and seniors for the fact that you get double credit for that? Because that would assist in those percentages not going up then. You'd get double credit for the units.
So if there is I'm going to let this planner speak to this, but if you have a developer who's ready to build veterans, then maybe you can add that project to the plan if someone has a project that can do that. But you can't just, so if you have a project that can actually do that, then perhaps you can add it into your plan. But I'll let the planner speak a little bit more to those specifics.
Abby Berg, 299. It won't even take 5 minutes. Is the town allowed to buy and bid on the property of 160 Main? And if they are allowed to, then if we, in theory, bought that property from the bidding, right? If in theory, I'm just thinking in theory, like if we were to buy that property and, okay, let me go back. We agree or don't disagree, they change the zoning tonight, just say for examples, right? Let's say they change the zoning and then we buy the property. We're still safe if we don't develop on it, correct?
So, yeah, because I was accused of talking in circles about this last time, so I'm going to try to make a straightforward answer. So the borough can potentially buy it. All right, that's the answer. However, the borough is at a disadvantage compared to private bidders because we're not as nimble as they are. Unlike private builders, we have to pass an ordinance anytime that the council wants to set aside money to buy real property. So the problem that we have, and Ryan reached out to the developer, right, who is doing the auction, and said, can we also participate? And they didn't really want us to participate on a contingency, meaning we wanted, in order to be able to participate, we wanted to be able to say, let us put in a bid, but then go back and get it approved by ordinance. And they said they didn't like that because everybody else who's bidding, if it's Toll Brothers or Pulte or these other companies, they don't have to wait and go back to the council and vote on an ordinance. They could just say, if they say $2 million, it's $2 million. So that was the problem that we have. It's not that we can't participate, it's just that we're at a disadvantage because we're just not as nimble as a private developer.
How long does it take for us to approve an ordinance like that? So for example, like we approved an ordinance, and I keep on coming back to it because that was the first meeting I went to, $10 million for a well, right? So there's a process. Is there any way we can expedite to say, we think this is what the property is worth, we're going to pay for it, we're going to buy it, and also we don't have capital funding in a bond in this town. I know the Board of Ed has it, they have to. We don't have a bonded capital funding for emergencies and stuff like that.
So I can't speak as to what money we have set aside, but on the ordinance process.
I'm just saying, is there a capital funding account that we have?
I mean, first of all, you're talking about a lot of money, so we might actually have to go out to bond. I don't, most towns of this size don't walk around with, millions of dollars in surplus.
Understood. But
that having been said, an ordinance does take, you have to introduce it on a first reading. So you get that on an agenda for one meeting. Then, at best, if it doesn't have to go to the planning board or anything like that, you've got advertised for 10 days, get it on for the next meeting. So
we don't have enough time.
It's not impossible. From what I understand, what they told Ryan was do the ordinance first and then bid. So let's say we do the ordinance first and then we bid, and then somebody still bids over us.
Right.
We're just not in as good a position as, let's say, Pulte, for instance.
Understood. Would it benefit us to possibly sell a utility to have all that extra money so that we don't have to deal with it? And that way we don't have to run into this in the next 5 or 10 years when we do the overlay. Then if they're bidding, we could be like, hey, we have the money now. Yay, we don't really need the well. But at least it's there for Key Foods or whatever.
And just to add to Mr. Cohen's sentiments, there is an additional challenge for the borough. It needs to be able to reasonably justify an expense that it has. So potentially this auction can yield more than what it's currently appraised at. So we would be hard pressed to be able to necessarily make an argument that a private developer wouldn't, that, we're going to, these are not real numbers.
Right.
We're going to go 5 million, but it's only assessed currently on the tax appeals as 1.7. So we would not have essentially the same ability a private developer would.
Understood. So, but going forward, is there a way as a town, as a borough, that we can make sure that we have some type of a surplus or somehow in our capital funding so that if we are in this position again, so let's say 160 Main's gonna, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, right? But because we're putting an overlay, right, from Esperitos all the way to Mill Road, is there a way going forward that we can figure out creative ways to get some money into our capital funding so that way we are not pushed into a corner where these builders have all the rules and we can't even eminent domain our own town. And then now we look like, Starrett City in the Bell Parkway. I'm just trying to like get ahead of it, right? Like if we're already messed up here, like what can we do to get ahead of it to the next time?
So I think the first thing, and this is something that, Chris's law firm and the planner worked on, is the fair share housing element plan. What that's designed to do is avoid this problem entirely, because that means that members of our community who've been designated, have worked with the planner, have worked with the lawyer, and have identified areas in town that would be less offensive to the residents, because we know whether we like it or not, right now this is the regime that we're living under. That we have to have 68, I think is the number for the fourth round, and whatever it was in the third round. We've got to make these things available. So one of the things that's happening later on tonight, if we ever get there, is the fair share housing plan. So I had no part in that, but that being said, I have confidence in the people who did. They're consummate professionals. They know what they're doing. But they had to try to pick the areas in town that hopefully will be more, less offensive to the residents. Obviously, people don't like 160 Main being developed, and that's why it speaks volumes, the number of people in this room. So that's why they sat down and tried to pick areas that would be hopefully more conducive. Is that fair, Chris?
That is fair.
Okay.
Because from the understanding that I had from last night, it was just that even if we do this overlay, that we're still open to lawsuits, possibly.
That's not true.
All right, that's just what I guess I misunderstood last night. So that means if we do this overlay and we approve to it, whether they do it or not, it's irrelevant as long as the developer, whether they add affordable housing is irrelevant because we gave them the option.
Correct.
To say it otherwise, you have a zoning ordinance that will be enacted, which will close the builder remedy lawsuit and will show the court that we have a third round plan with the mechanisms in place. The builder never builds it. You have the zoning that's been enacted.
So does that mean if, let's say, just for example, like if they put like these, we change the zoning and then they want to put something on what is it, that Safeway or whatever that gas station was, does the builder require to keep affordable housing in there, or can he choose not to because he doesn't have to, but we're letting him do it just in case? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is he required then to put in affordable housing? And if the answer is no, then how do we complete our obligation? Because we're still not giving affordable housing. It's like a very weird loophole. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we could say that we're going to do it, but they don't really have to do it. But then we're not in trouble for doing it. But then we're not helping the community then if we really want to put real affordable housing here. I don't know. It just seems very circular and weird. Weird's the wrong word for it. It just seems bureaucratic.
So part of the reason and part of the satisfaction of this is to avoid that going forward.
No, but I understand that. But like if we do the overlay, right, on 34,
correct,
and some guy buys the property, some developer buys the property of where the gas station once was, right, and he decides to use the mixed use, right, some stores on the bottom, 3 floors up or whatever we decide.
Yes.
Is he required by law to put 15 to 20%? Has to go, no matter what. He doesn't have a choice.
Correct.
And we're not allowed to require in the zoning that we have a 55 and plus or veteran housing. We can't. So he can require us to change our zoning, but we can't require him to make this an actual like benefit to the community. Because if you put 55 and older, the schools aren't affected. Right? I'm just trying to understand like why are they allowed to do everything and we're just like, all right. I guess I don't get it. Doesn't seem constitutional that they can just do it. So the state law says that we can't require a 55 plus building. They have them all down 35. And it's up to the builder. It's not up to the township zoning laws.
So when we get to the housing element and fair share plan, our planner will explain the limits on different types of housing projects, different types of structures, what the limits are in the bill, what the caps are. And I think that will help explain why there were selections that were made.
Right. No, I understand. I was at the zoning meeting last night. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello. I might be the only one in this room with this.
Your name, please, and your
sorry.
address?
Harrison James, 123 Nutmeg in Aberdeen. So I might be the only one in this room with this opinion, but I'd like to offer a different perspective. So as a young person, I would like to have a future in this town, which I consider to be part of my hometown. But without new housing, I will have no future here. Not just in Aberdeen, Matawan, but in New Jersey. For over a decade, New Jersey has had the 4th highest domestic migration loss in the country. The loss of population stems almost entirely from the housing crisis, which exists due to a major lack of housing people can afford. I assume many of the people in this room have owned their homes for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But have you seen the housing prices lately? The current median house price in Matawan is $566,000. In 2019, it was $375,000. That is a 51% increase in only 6 years. I couldn't find the averages from about 30 years ago, but I'll use my own house as an example. My parents bought their house in 1997 for $193,000. Today, the Zillow estimate is $768,000, a 300% increase in 30 years. My parents couldn't afford that house today. Ask everybody in this room, could you afford your home today? If you have children who live at home, could they afford to move out and live in their own hometown? Or will they join the tens of thousands of other New Jersey residents who have had to move to other states where they can afford? If you believe in supply and demand, I don't know why you don't believe it applies to the housing market. Without building new housing, you will just have more people competing over the existing housing in the town, raising asking prices more than they would be without the increased supply. For everyone complaining about overdevelopment and preservation of our town's identity, I ask you to look at Matawan's history. In 1940, Matawan had a population of 2,758 residents. In 1960, Matawan had over 5,100 residents. In 1970, they had over 9,000 residents, an 80% increase in 1 decade and a triple of the population since 1940. How do you think the existing residents felt about the rapidly changing character of the community at the time? All those farms and forests that once defined all of Matawan, besides the Main Street area, was paved over for residential subdivisions. Without that happening, most of the people in this room, I don't think they'd ever be able to have lived here. And if they prevented all the development that happened in the 60s, they would never, that they're fighting against today. Related to this, school capacity is obviously a big issue here, but I don't know why people don't seem to believe that our schools can be expanded. So Matawan and Aberdeen built several new schools to address these issues when all these new residents came during the time. Ravine Drive was built in 1956, Cliffwood 1957, the high school in Strathmore 1962, Lloyd Road 1966, and the middle school 1971. All of these schools are built in the span of 15 years. I don't know why we don't keep acting like we can't expand the schools like we did 60 years ago. Parking is also a big contention on Main Street, but Matawan already has a municipal parking lot on Little Street next to the post office. It's never full, and if parking really does become such a problem, I don't know why the town can't afford to build a parking garage on that lot. For those who are concerned about the development fitting into the downtown preservation district, I understand. I like how Main Street is. I like the historic character of it. But this is not a 10-story modern glass box, which, like you explained, the builder's remedy, they could do that if they wanted to, if the town decided to not settle and lost the lawsuit. It's a 3-story brick building. Like we can argue about aesthetics all we want, but from my point of view, the aesthetics are relatively match Main Street. It's a brick building. I'm not sure how much more you could do. And frankly, I think new housing is more important than minute details about how the building looks. Lastly, I hear a lot of people talk about protecting our beloved Main Street. I love our Main Street, it's a highlight of our town, but it can be a lot better. Whenever I go to Main Street, what do I see? A bunch of cars using it as a place for people to drive through instead of a place to go to. There's no better way to make our Main Street more lively than having people live there, who live in walking distance to the various small businesses that line it. When people talk about going out on a Friday night, you'll hear people talk about the towns with thriving downtowns like Keyport, Red Bank, Freehold. But what does Matawan really have besides maybe a couple people walking around at a time? I want Matawan to be a destination. I want it to be a town where its own residents aren't traveling to other municipalities to spend their money because we refuse to invest in our Main Street. I want our Main Street businesses to thrive. I want a Main Street everyone can be proud of, and this means having more residents, more businesses, and overall more things to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Anyone else? Privilege of the floor. So noted. Motion to close privilege of the floor.
Motion, Mayor.
Mayor, your time's up.
All in favor?
Good night.
Opposed? Thank you. Ordinance 25-12. Can I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilperson Gunn?
Yes.
Councilperson Freilich?
Yes.
Councilperson Levinson?
Yes.
Councilperson Russell?
Yes.
Councilperson Reynolds?
No.
Councilperson Ross?
No.
Motion passed.
At this time, clerk's report.
Clerk's office issued the following business licenses for March 8th. CPU bar, electric extensions and body waxing. Uso nail lounge, nail salon. Borough Beautiful by Constantina.
Karen, I hate to interrupt you. Let's do a 5-minute break. Whoever wants to leave, leave. So we're taking a 5-minute break, please.
What we got?
Microphones will remain active.
Okay. Sorry about that, Karen.
Sure.
Wait a minute. We hit the wall.
Yeah, yes. I want to try to get us.
We don't want to do that. Here. You can stop that one time.
We could ask, my understanding of Borough is basically mixing two zoning uses. So generally, let's say you're in a residential area, you have a commercial overlay, so this could be commercial in a residential area as well. But if you really want to be residential, and the planners will come up later, hopefully, yeah. The borough engineer, he was up here with another person from his firm also does the planning firms. Did the plan, and they've done the planning for years. So,
I got my Medicare card. No wars, no budgets. July 1st. The democracy here is you have an outburst for 5 minutes. Comes out later on. we want to run pieces. They say they want to know. Sunday. Oh, shit.
Ready?
Hey. Oh, you're paying attention.
All right, we're going to start up again. All right, if we can continue the clerk's report. You're welcome.
Business licenses. CB Beauty Bar, lash extensions and body waxing, Deluso Nail Lounge Salon, Forever Beautiful by Constantina is semi-permanent makeup, and Ruth's Place Counseling Services. And that's my report.
Thank you. Mayor's report, I got a quick one. Just did Everything Road is still ahead of schedule. And that's all I have for tonight. Administrator's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You've obviously heard from me for a lot, so I'll let that be my report, so not to take up any more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer's report.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
First project is a 2022 sewer rehabilitation program. We're coordinating the remaining lining work with the contractor, and those should be wrapping it up shortly. The Clinton Street Park Improvements Phase 2, the pre-construction meeting is scheduled for June 18th. The 2024 road program, the contracts are being prepared and the pre-construction meeting is being coordinated. And lastly, 150 Main Street demolition, the pre-construction meeting was held and the contractor is coordinating with utility companies to disconnect lines at this stage. That's my report.
Thank you. Economic Business Development, Planning, Zoning, Police, Councilperson Dina Gunn.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as planning and zoning is concerned, we are discussing that tonight and greater actions of no report. As far as economic business is concerned, we're still trying to reschedule Blues Cruise Night, which seems to have been, the weather has not been in our favor this year. Both nights, both the original night and the rain date have to be rescheduled due to weather. So we'll keep everybody posted on when that we'll have a new date for that. As far as police is concerned, everybody has the report, just a couple of highlights as of 5/31/25. Approximately 41% of the calendar year's budgeted overtime has been expended. 93 hours of overtime were expended this month, and include shift coverage, investigative follow-ups, coverage for supervision, special events, extending past normally scheduled shifts due to call out. Officers provided traffic assistance to 35 special duty assignments this reporting period. Members of the department's command staff and honor guard participated in the Borough's Memorial Day ceremony, which many people were there, and we thank them for being a part of that. The Patrol Division responded to over 1,092 calls of service during this reporting period and 5,433 calls year to date, including 28 side motor vehicle crashes, 265 e-citations, and 13 arrests were made during this reporting period as well. The traffic safety unit continues to work diligently and hard around the borough. The speed trailer has been deployed in various locations based on resident concerns, and the traffic safety unit issued 165 summonses in the month of May alone. And you'll see the variable message board deployed for road closures for various events throughout the borough. And they're also participating in the Goal Zero campaign, which is the zero crashes and also zero fatalities. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Recreation, Recycling, and Sanitation, Councilperson Arnold Fathers.
Mayor, I have nothing new to report from recycling. Mr. Rainford continues to seek new opportunities for us to better our recycling practices, so I thank her for continued work. With the rec committee, I'd like to first state that working with the rec committee continues to be a great honor, Mr. Mayor. So I thank you for the appointment.
You're welcome.
I want to repeat the fact that the great joy I have being councilman for this town is to work on creating events that bridge our differences and bring us together as a community so that we can celebrate together and make Matawan a place of inclusivity and love and community. So with that, I'm really happy to share with you some of our past events, successful, and some of our future events coming up. We had a town-wide yard sale. I think I actually spoke about that in our last review. That was included 68 homes participating, so that's always a fun event. The Memorial Day Parade was a huge success. We expanded our musical guests. We brought more floats out. Aberdeen generously donated 2 trailers for us to use, so we thank them. The attendance at the memorial ceremony was very nice. Thankfully, the rain stayed away this time. And I personally had a great time. So thank you for those of you who helped design our floats. I know everybody here made it stop by at some point, so that was a lot of fun participating. We had a senior tea talk June 5th. The rec department held the first of their senior tea talks. A speaker from the Monmouth County Division on Aging, Disabilities, and Veteran Services presented an overview of their programs available for our Matawan seniors. The program was well received with 31 seniors in attendance. We hope they'll take advantage of programs and more as we bring them to be available. There was a senior bus trip on June 10th. 22 seniors signed up for the Recreation Department's bus trip to PNC Arts Center in Oneville to see the Grassroots and the Buckinghams. I'm sure that was a great show. This was a free concert through the Garden State Arts Foundation, and the seniors apparently had a great time despite the weather. It was a little gloomy that day. I kind of wish I had come to that show. I'm sure it was great. We had a fishing derby June 7th. The weather held out for us on that day. It's been a weird year for weather and events, but 49 children attended this year's fishing derby. They all received a goodie bag filled with items that were generously donated by NJ Fish and Wildlife. We had 4 winners separated by age groups for largest fish, and each winner received a fishing pole donated by NJ Fish and Wildlife as well. The largest fish was 19 inches. That's pretty good for the lake.
That is impressive.
There was 1 winner of the smallest fish as well. All the winners received $25 GameStop gift cards. Washington Engine #1 generously barbecued hot dogs for all who attended, so thank you to them. We had our second teen night, which we instituted last year. My daughter, I want to shout her out. It was her idea to try to engage with more teens in our community. We find that as children become teens, we tend to lose them at community events. We want to make sure that they continue to connect with our community. So we have tried to institute nights that speak directly to them, for them. We had a movie night at Turkland. 50 teens were in attendance or so. They all came to view the season 4 finale of Stranger Things in preparation for season 5's the new season coming up in the fall, which we are also going to invite our teens to come and enjoy. From what I understand, they had a great time. And I know my daughter and her friends had an excellent time as well. With upcoming events, our farmers market kicks off the first of 4 monthly farmers markets run by Asbury Fresh. The market will once again be held at Borough Hall. The other 3 days of the market are July 19th, August 16th, and September 20th. We have fireworks coming up on June 28th. We have a rain date up to 29th. There will be inflatables, tattoo station, sand art, balloon art for kids who enjoy the recreation table. We'll have making tape crafts for kids as well. There'll be food trucks, ice cream truck for residents to purchase food if they like, and a novelty vendor selling light ups for purchase as well. That night will start at 6:30 p.m. We have some movie nights planned for Terhune as well. There are 2 movie nights scheduled. The first will be a showing of Jaws on July 18th. This is to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the movie. Very excited to be working in collaboration and coordination with the Matawan Historical Society on that evening. They will be coming to give a talk prior to the movies about the 1916 shark attack in Matawan and how the movie references that attack. So we're happy to focus on Matawan, Matawan's history, and it should be a fun night. The second movie will be Moana 2 on July 25th, and those shows, like I said, will be shown in Terhune Park starting at 7 p.m. In August, we will have our family nights under the stars. Our musical lineup has been secured. The August 7th concert will feature national artist Nicole Atkins. August 14th, we have the Saltwater Country Band. August 21st, Mission Dance Band. And on August 28th, the legendary Steve Forward. With that, that is the end of my rec report. I also do want to give a shout out to our graduates in the Matawan School District. I attended my daughter's graduation. She'll be heading into middle school next year. And my other daughter will be graduating from middle school and heading into high school. I just want to wish them and the whole class, their friends, families, the best of luck in their next year's adventures in school. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. DPW, Fire Shade Tree, Councilperson Brian Livesey.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Shade Tree, I have no report. Fire responded to 36 calls. Just a reminder, they're having a coin toss this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, from 9 to 1. Saturday will be at Walgreens. Sunday will be in front of the Freedom Fire Company. DPW, new field tech is starting, I believe by the end of this week as a replacement. They're currently working on retrofitting the storm drains. They have just about 50% done. This kind of closes that space and prevents garbage from going into our waterways. The surface on Terhune Park, the playground has been repaired. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Historical Sites Personnel, Councilperson Stephen Russell.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Concerning the Personnel Committee, I have no report. Concerning Historical Sites, we did have to postpone our June meeting because it was on the same night as the Chamber of Commerce Awards Banquet. So I have nothing much to report with the Historic Sites, except to say that members of the commission will be involved with the Historical Society on Saturday, July 12th for the annual Shark Commemoration Tour from 11 to 2. And also what Arlen mentioned about the July 18th movie Jaws. If you haven't seen it or haven't seen it in a while, don't let another 50 years pass by for you to see the movie. And we are also involved in the 250th celebration, the semi-quincentennial next year. Then that concludes my report.
Thank you. ADA, Animal Welfare, Property Maintenance, Councilperson Suzanne Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
For Animal Advisory, there's no update on numbers. One resident did reach out to me regarding TNR services, so I arranged that with Corinne from the SPCA. There was also a resident that had concern for our current contract that we use with our pest services regarding glue traps. So that's something that I'll need to discuss with you, Ryan, this week at some point in time. For ADA, the next meeting is June 26th at 6 p.m. held here at Borough Hall. And for property maintenance, there's no update at this time. So that's my report.
Construction, Environmental, Finance, Councilperson Charles Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, just 2 things. Do you have an update on the questions the Environmental Commission had regarding the testing of the lake?
And I apologize, Councilman, I don't have an update, and I I was looking for additional clarification from you on Friday, so I don't think I got a response.
Okay, that's fine. And then also, stay with the environmental, how are we looking on that, NRI? Do you project the shade tree?
So I did solicit a proposal, so we'll see if we can.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. On the consent agenda, Resolution 25-06-11 through Resolution 25-06-28. We're doing Moss. Could I have a motion?
I have a question about
Let me get a
one of
second.
them.
Hold on, let me get a second. I got a second? Okay.
I had a quick question about 250614. Can we find out why that was denied? The canvasser license was denied.
Background checks.
Backwards, okay. Just curious why that's, thank you.
Charlie, do you have something?
Yeah, I have two simple questions on Resolution 250617, award the contract for the backup well. My question is there a penalty if we do not build this well, we wind up selling it? You're awarding a contract to somebody. Is there a break clause where I say, you know what, we're not gonna do this well now? Do I still owe a fee to it? Is there an out, am I making sense in there?
My understanding, and I'll defer to Rob if he's got a better answer, but my understanding is you can always scrap a project after you go out to bid if you decide as a council that you can no longer do the project. I don't think that you're under an obligation to do it. There's only a couple of times that you can throw out bids. One of them is if you decide not to do the project. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, you have 60 days to award it. That's the criteria.
Okay, once I award it though.
Yeah.
And obviously we're gonna award it to somebody. Say we decide 6 months from now, we're not gonna do this. Is there a penalty?
The contractor would probably have some kind of claim. I couldn't tell you what that is, whatever they think their costs are.
It's not in the contract, like, hey, it's a 10% penalty fee, like a restocking fee kind of thing?
No, it's because we don't know what the restocking fee would be of materials or anything. The contract does say you have 60 days to award it. If you go beyond 60 days, then it's not a contract, or you'd have to request acceptance from the contractor to extend it beyond 60 days.
So he can sue us if we don't build it.
That's a legal question. I can't answer that.
Anybody could sue for anything, obviously. That's the easy part of the answer. But the safe legal advice is if you're not sure about doing the project, you shouldn't vote to award it, because once you vote to award it, then you could open yourself up to potential liability. If it would depend on what your reason is for not moving forward with the project. If you have a good reason, or it becomes infeasible for some reason, or an act of God or something of that nature, then we probably would have a pretty good defense if we got sued. If not, we probably have to look at what they submitted in their bid and all these other things. So my advice would be if the council is not sure about going forward with the project, then the best course of action would be not to vote to award it. Would you agree with that, Rob?
I'll ask a question. What's this well for?
This is the new well.
Okay, thank you. Stop there. That's all I wanted to hear that. So this is the well that I am 100% against. But I know we are gonna plan for our future, maybe sell, maybe not sell. The fact that I'm awarding a contract now without letting the process go through to what Rob just told me, if I don't award this contract within 60 days, I have a potential lawsuit against me or a restitution fee. Why would we put this on now if we're in parallel worlds here, trying to either sell this utility or this? Because if I sell it in 4 months, this resolution is pointless.
Rob, with the value of our water.
I don't want, what I'm saying, my fear is I don't want to say, hey, you know what? I want this contract and come back and say, you know what, you're not doing anything, you owe me $200,000.
Can we just pull that one out?
You're awarding a contract. That's what I'm saying. I don't know why we're doing this.
Well, my suggestion is, we could have more debate on that. Maybe to get the consent agenda going, if somebody wants to make a motion to remove that or any other of the resolutions in the consent agenda, then you could get a vote on the consent agenda and then deliver.
I get if to your point, you're going to say, play it safe. I wouldn't award it now. I'd maybe wait 2 months down the road and award it to somebody. Say, okay, you know what? We have an idea. If we're getting bids in. Again, I don't want us to be out money for no reason. So if we can hold off on it.
If you're in favor of selling it, I'm not in favor of selling. I don't know what the rest of the council is, but.
Okay, but you're the.
We talked about this at length, and part of the plan is to move on with what we need to do should we not sell the well, so we're not behind
I understand that, but why do it now? Why not wait 2 months? Because if I am going to sell this place, if we are going to sell it, once we get bids and you see the numbers, I know you're against it, Mr. Mayor, believe me, you and I love your enthusiasm being against it, but if the numbers come back and they're astronomical, whatever it is, like I said, if I succeed, we all succeed. If I fail, I fail. Give me the opportunity. That's all I'm asking, number one. Stop cutting me off. Number two, if that doesn't happen, my point is, you're doing this by now, you're opening yourself up to a time frame that we cannot, that we may not want to follow. That's what I'm saying. So because, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, the entire process, because on this item is the WIPA process, the public hearing, once that happens, you put it out to bed and all that good stuff. This could happen within 6 months.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially. So, but within 4 months, you should have an idea of where it's going. So my point is, if you do this now, to Ron's point, I have 60 days to award that contract. We are in June. That means I'm in August. You're setting yourself up to either be sued, pay a fee, when you can push it back 2 months, you have a better idea where this whole process stands. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying push it back 2 years.
Am I correct?
Push it back.
That would be taken into the price if we were to sell. When you get a quote from the water company, if we sell, they're going to include that price of what we're paying now for the well. They're going to need it anyway.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, the DEP has a stay on any new connections, right? We all know that. So this well is to help relieve that. Would the water company, would that be favorable to the water company? It's hard, I can't opine for them, but I think that's probably something that they would favor, but I can't say what they don't need.
I actually asked them that question, and they said that it wasn't necessary.
Okay.
Since this has been a point of contention for months now.
That's why I said I can't opine on what they're.
Who did you ask?
I asked someone from American Water that I saw at a.
How do you know that they're going to bid on it?
They're one of the only ones that are out there.
They're not the only ones.
They're one of the only ones. That's
That
what
is
I just
correct.
said.
My point is, I think we're just being a little premature.
Especially when on 25/06/15, we're putting it out for a public hearing for WIPA, which that is a 30-day process. But in 2 down, we're going to award a project that we could potentially give ourselves a litigation problem. Why would we do that?
From a purely parliamentary perspective, because this resolution is obviously controversial, the consent agenda is made to sort of move in moss on items that are not controversial. My suggestion, Mayor, is that you ask for a motion to remove resolution 25-06-17 from the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilperson Gunn?
No.
Councilperson Silas?
No.
Councilperson Ledson?
No.
Councilperson Russell?
No.
Councilperson Reynolds?
Yes.
Councilperson Ross?
Before I vote, I'm going to see here. This is the irony here, the hypocrisy. You all say here before, you don't want this project on Main Street. You can delay it. You don't have the water infrastructure. By doing this, you are contradicting what you want to happen. You can delay the project by not giving a supply of water. But here you are voting to award a contract to give them water supply. So all I'm asking is, think about the big picture here. Let me do what I can do, what I do best, what I do for a living.
We don't
Let me
know
go back to you.
We don't know what you do best for a living.
So guess what? Was it, I mean, yes?
To be clear, what you're all,
I want to pull it out, so yes.
so what you're voting on is, right now, it would be 4-2 to
point
keep it in the consent agenda.
I want it out.
So I mean, the difficulty with that is now, you know, if you might have had 6-0 on the remainder of the consent agenda, it's not clear what people are voting against.
Yeah.
But obviously it's the will of the body. So if the will of the body is to keep it on the consent agenda, then that's the will of the body.
I'll take it off, just to make it fair. So resolution 25-06-17, could I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilperson Gunn?
Yes.
Councilperson Silas?
Yes.
Councilperson Ledson?
Yes.
Councilperson Russell?
Yes.
Councilperson Reynolds?
No.
Councilperson Ross?
No.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Resolution 25-06-11 through Resolution 25-06-28, but obviously doesn't include Resolution 25-06-17. We'll do in mass. Could I have a motion?
Through 25, I think.
Say it again.
I think it's through, is it 2506?
28.
Through 25 plus resolution 28.
So 25-06-25 and including Resolution 25-06-28, correct?
We have a first, we have a second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilperson Gunn.
Yes.
Councilperson Freitas.
Yes.
Councilperson Robinson.
Yes.
Councilperson Russell.
Yes.
Councilperson Reynolds.
I actually had a question, another question on these. 250621. I don't, does the resolution by mayor and council governing body, Borough of Matawan, to restate and add a wealth provision for an existing deferred comp plan?
This essentially allows our current employees to invest in a Roth plan with their current provider for their deferred compensation plan.
We have deferred comp plans here?
So we don't contribute to that. Well, actually you do. So it's a fairly complicated question. So for full-time employees that are not considered political appointees, they must be enrolled in the pension system. For part-time and any other class of employee, they have to be enrolled in a deferred compensation plan. And then there is also the option for employees above that are in the pension to voluntarily enroll in the deferred compensation plan.
Maybe public and private deferred comp is a little bit different. For me, deferred comp is I get paid 3 years from now. Same thing?
I mean, it's essentially, no, I mean.
That's my confusion.
Yeah,
My deferred comp world is, you get a bonus now, you pay it out 3 years from now.
It's
very much like
401k.
It's like a retirement savings. It's a.
Okay, then I just asked, deferred comp is probably not the best terminology, maybe retirement plan or something? I'm just trying to understand it, that's all.
Yeah, they are, the goal is retirement plan.
Okay.
That is what they are. Yeah.
I'm good.
Good, so are we waiting for a vote?
No, I think you've already,
Yes.
Councilperson Wood.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Under new business, Resolution 25-06-26, Borough of Matawan, resolution of Borough of Matawan, County of Monmouth, endorsing a round 4 housing element and fair share plan of the Borough of Matawan's master plan, approving draft implementing resolutions and ordinances in connection with said plan, and authorizing the submission of said plan and materials to the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program. Could I have a motion?
Motion.
I think the planner wanted to discuss it.
Okay.
I have no comments.
Council, I'll just briefly speak on this resolution before handing it off to your planner. So as was explained today, municipalities throughout the state are in the midst of the planning for the 4th round. The 4th round begins on July 1st. The municipalities are required, in order to avoid builder remedy litigation for the 4th round, they're required to submit housing element and fair share plans to the court system by June 30th. The bill also requires that any implementing ordinances for that housing element and fair share plan have to be submitted in draft form. And so what this resolution does is endorses the housing element and fair share plan as the proposed plan for the Borough of Matawan for the years 2025 to 2035. And it also presents draft ordinances and resolutions implementing that plan. Now, what I just want to make very clear is that those draft ordinances have to come back to the council for a hearing, notice, and a vote of the council. What's required for the bill is the submission of drafts. So that's what this resolution does. As a reminder of where we've come from, in the start of the year, the borough set forth its determination of what its fair share obligation was, what units needed to be rehabilitated, and what new construction units needed to be provided. In your determination, you reserve the right to modify that prospective need obligation based on adjustments that are allowed in the law. We then submitted, my office submitted that resolution to the court system. There was a period of challenge. The Builders Association came in and said, you got to build more, that your number's incorrect. They ended up backing down during the settlement conference period. And so your determination stuck. And so your planners have prepared a plan for the fourth round to meet those obligations. So I'll turn it over to Justin from TNM and walk you through it.
Is that working? Was that microphone, is that working?
No.
There
we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
My name is Justin Castronio, like Chris said, from TNM Associates. I am a licensed professional planner in New Jersey. And like mentioned before, last night I was here. I presented to the Planning and Zoning Board regarding the housing element and fair share plan, which was adopted at the end of the night. So here we are to the next stage, where before you is the opportunity to endorse that plan, like mentioned. So I'm just going to give you a breakdown of the plan itself. You can break it into two sections. The first one is the analysis of demographic, housing, and employment characteristics and household characteristics. That is a required portion of the housing element. It's strictly data from the U.S. Census Bureau, New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. So it's about 20 pages of data within the document. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. What we're all here for and want to know, the important thing is the fair share plan. And I'm going to explain to you what the obligations were and how Matawan is going to comply with those obligations. So in the prior round, which is considered rounds 1 and 2, they're bundled together. The obligation, and that's from 1987 to 1999, that obligation was 141 units. In round 3, from 1999 to 2025, the obligation was 157 units. Our round 4 obligation, which is in this current decade upcoming, is 68 units, as mentioned earlier, and that's where we're at. So the prior round and round 3 total obligation is 298 units, and it's our job to show how we comply with that obligation, which we do. So we've addressed several sites in the document that show that we actually provide credits for 305 units of credit to address the 298 unit obligation. So these are through sites that we've heard the past 3 hours. Obviously, 160 Main Street is one of those. There is Minisink Village, the age-restricted development. There's the Preserve at Matawan, 126 Main Street, the Matawan Junction Wilt Group development, and then, as mentioned earlier, the 114 to 116 Main Street development, and then also the remaining train station redevelopment area. So all of that combines to 305 units towards the obligation.
I got a question.
Sure.
The whole night we're here talking about this. So 305 includes 160.
That's right.
I take out 160, I'm at 297. I fall short of 1 unit?
That's right.
Really? So we're going through this whole merry-go-round here for 1 unit, because like you said, your point earlier, the lawyer, I risk litigation. My requirement is 298. If I'm at 297, a builder's gonna sue me for 1 unit? They're gonna waste their time. The court's gonna say, yes, you have to apply 1 unit? I'll rent my garage out, there's your unit. I'm trying to understand, I'm now, the numbers actually jump out at me now. 1 unit? You're afraid of going to court for 1 unit? I don't get this now. What's the litigation in this? Yeah, answer.
You have a third round obligation. You have a developer who has a pending builder's remedy lawsuit.
Okay, let's go one for one here. My third round obligation is 298. Right? And this gentleman here, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Justin just said, we're at 305, including 160. So hold on, math here. I'm pretty good at math. My requirement is 298. I have 305 with 160. I pull out 160, I'm at 297. So I'm falling by 1 unit.
Let's just step back on the numbers. Your third round obligation, and and I'm going to put this out if Justin wants to clarify, he can. Your third round obligation, new construction is 157, okay? It's 157.
You just said, I have 305. Again, these are all cumulative. You're not saying, what's 140, 150 or whatever else, it's 298. The first 20 years and the next 10 years, I need 298 through round 3, correct?
So Justin, I believe.
I don't care what I need to build during 3. Through rounds 1 through 3, I need 298, yes or no?
Councilman, let me explain it, all right?
It's a simple question, dude. Simple math. What do I need through round 1 through 3?
So Councilman, there is a fourth round obligation and there is a third round obligation, okay? Your third round obligation is, Justin, if you can confirm the math, 157 units.
That's right.
Okay. That's your third round. You have to show a compliance plan for your third round. Because there's a pending builder's remedy lawsuit, that plan for the third round needs to include 160 Main. And so you got to start with the 157 and put in the 160 Main project into that because they filed during the third round.
Okay.
Okay.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Again, my question is this, math. Through rounds 1 through 3, how many are we required as a town to have? I don't care just about round 3. 1 through 3. What's our requirement? You just said it, 298, yes or no?
That's the obligation, 298.
Okay, my obligation, rounds 1 through 3. Obviously, rounds 1 and 2 are already taken care of. Right? That happened 1970s to 19 whatever else. I wasn't even living here. Round 3, I need 155, which gets me to my 298, or whatever the number is. 157.
157.
That gets me to 298. But this gentleman just said he's accounted for 305, which is more than 298, which includes 160. So if I pull that, again, the numbers you're saying to me just don't add up.
Is 114 through 116 included in that?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that an approved plan by a developer?
I think you all approved that.
The planning and zoning board.
It's 100% approved. So all of these other plans are 100% approved. Their design, their numbers, everything is approved.
There's the Menacing Village that is developed and approved, the Preserve in Matawan, yes, the 126 Main Street, Matawan Junction Wilt Group, yes, 160 Main Street, the overlay zone was just passed, 114 to 116 Main Street, yes, and then there was the remaining train station redevelopment area analysis that
Wait, now the train station development is in there, the analysis, correct?
That's
right. Now I read that today. It says 1 affordable unit for every 10 regular, correct?
for the development, the Wilt Group one.
I'm just asking, the train station development that was put in there in 2018 says affordable housing is 1 unit for every 10 regular. Is that still the same for what you have in this plan for the train station development?
So the build out analysis was based on.
I'm asking just the math. Is it 1 for every 10, yes or no?
The way I can get to that, the one I.
You can't yell from the audience, please.
If it's 1 for every.
Let them answer it, good.
The build out analysis was based on the percentages that are in the redevelopment plan. So you look at Justin, if you can maybe walk through that.
So it's 15%. So the train station redevelopment area results in the potential of development of 968 housing units. 15% would be affordable as required in the plan, which results in.
Didn't you say 20% was in the plan earlier?
That's for the 4th round.
So that's for the overlay zone in the 4th round. So that results in 146 affordable housing units that would be go towards the 3rd round obligation.
So, but the train station development is just basically like an idea, right? Like nobody has a plan, nobody has an approval,
so
right?
Councilwoman, let me just. It is remember, you have to go back to the heart of this, heart of the doctrine. You have to create the zoning possibilities. So you have a redevelopment plan in place with the 15% set aside. So based on that, we were able to project what we could legitimately say a yield of affordable housing would be for that zoning mechanism.
Okay, my question is, instead of 1 for every 10, if you did 1 for every 9, wouldn't we have extra units and then we could pull out 160? I guess that's the mathematical question here. Since there's no approval, everything else is set in stone, approved by planning and zoning, yes, 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 6 on 6 or 4 on 4, whatever it was. If this is just an idea for the train station and this is just a plan you're gonna submit, the heart of the doctrine, can't you do 1 for every 9 instead of 1 for every 10 and then we'd have additional units?
Well, Chris, was there an area in need of redevelopment study relative to the train station and then a plan? Is that how that worked out?
I believe that's.
Okay, so what may have happened is that we, at some prior body here, the governing body of the Borough of Matawan, declared that as an area in need of redevelopment and then had a plan. And that plan has already, been approved. And that plan sets forth how many units are going to be there. And that plan already locks us in at 15%. Is that accurate?
That's correct. And I just want to put on the record, this is a great example of proactive planning for the borough. This helps us get towards our obligation goal. So I want everybody to understand that this is a good thing for the borough.
Well, I mean, whatever you think about it, it's over now, right?
Yeah,
that's not in the wall. That's not something we would claw back. There was a redevelopment plan. It says what it says, and that's what's going to be developed based on that plan.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, the 4th round.
Okay.
So let's see where I'm at. So we got past the 3rd round. Like I mentioned, 305 units, 298 was the obligation. We have an excess of 7 units. That gets carried over into the 4th round. And it will address our RDP obligation. So our obligation is 68 units. And as we know, Matawan has no vacant land available. There's no sufficient land to zone or build to meet its full 4th round obligation. So a vacant land adjustment was conducted to adjust this. And the VLA analyzed vacant lots with a tax assessment classification of 1, vacant land, or 15C, public property. Full lots or portions of those lots that contain environmental constraints were excluded. Properties listed on the borough's ROSI were excluded. Round 3 compliance mechanisms were excluded. And an 8 unit per acre density was applied to the remaining lots or the portions of those lots. And the vacant land adjustment resulted in a 6 unit RDP, which is a realistic development potential. The 7 units that we had in excess completely addressed that. Now the question is,
You lost me just a little bit, sorry.
Sure, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, so this is for round 4.
We're at round 4.
The number you just said was round 4. So basically, I have no obligation for round 4.
So we fully addressed the realistic development potential, which is great.
Okay, so round 4, I should have no obligation. I think you just said it again. A lot of numbers through. I'm trying to in my head.
Yeah. So
based on everything deducted at different lands and all that stuff, my obligation was 6.
So the obligation is still 68. The vacant land adjustment, it results in a realistic development potential of 6. Now the remaining units are in a category called unmet need, which I'll get into, and how we have to address that from state legislation.
Okay.
So the 7 units they carry over, they fully address that. You subtract 7 from 68 of the obligation, it goes into the unmet need bucket.
So I have 61 IOUs basically.
So 61 is the unmet need, where we have to address 25% of the unmet need through realistic zoning. So 25% of that has to be addressed through realistic zoning.
Okay, get me out here because it's a hot topic and I want to understand this.
Charlie, hold on one second. Unless anybody has any obligation, any against it,
Hot topic word.
I'm going to let Rob Keaty, our borough engineer, go home. Anybody against it?
No.
He's an Eagles fan. He's got to stay.
Good.
Rob, always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's I get it. I'm just trying to understand. So I have a 61 IOU basically, right? Unmet need.
Yeah.
I need to make 25% of that, and by rezoning.
Yes, by the zoning. We're proposing a zoning overlay.
Okay, was that overlay? Ron, you're not talking about 34, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I do agree with that. I think it's a perfect place for it. I agree with that.
Yeah.
That meets 25%. What about the next 25%? I gotta keep rezoning my town to figure it out?
No, the plan just calls for, the fourth round, it calls for 25% of the unmet need to have an overlay zone. So
Okay, I
that's
get
it.
that, but I have 61 IOUs.
Correct, but you
Okay,
don't
so
have to
25%
rezone
is-
for that. You don't have to rezone.
Now, this doesn't mean shovels in the ground for 61 units. It just means we have to provide a realistic zoning opportunity to provide.
Okay, I get that, which we done here.
Yes.
But I still owe you some property, right? I still owe you some units.
No, this
So this
addresses it.
rezoning here will fill all 61? I guess, potentially could be.
Yeah. So it
Okay.
spans all the way from up top is the Dunkin' Donuts.
I talked about it, I understand it, so I can meet it all in one shot and just overlay.
Yeah, the
But
overlay.
if I don't, for whatever reason, I have to meet my requirement is 25%.
All we have to meet is 25%, that's right.
So my next question is, the remaining 75%, where does that go?
It could go there.
It could theoretically go
if-
there.
We're dealing hypotheticals here. If we could only fit 25% of it in this spot, all right, nobody else wants to build there, there's not enough room, for whatever reason, there's no parking, there's not enough space, people, the residents behind there complain, for whatever reason, we only put 25% in this space.
Yeah.
I still owe 75%. My question is, what happens next? Do you make me rezone some other places in town? That's my question here. Eventually, I'm going to run out of space.
I understand. Chris.
So can the state say, you know what? All right, you're done. Matawan, you finished, complete, finite, no more requirements for you? Or they're going to say, you know what? Go build up now. Change your ordinance from 5 stories to 7 stories.
If it's,
That's my question. That's my fear.
if it's my understanding of the law, the 2024 law, it requires us to have a realistic opportunity through zoning. So we're creating that opportunity. The other 75% would be permissible within our current zoning laws throughout the borough.
Again,
so we have.
But we're being forced to change our current zoning laws to meet something. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Listen, I understand this,
But the legal,
but I'm talking.
excuse me?
My point is, we're being forced to change something now. You don't think 10 years from now, the state's gonna make us, or somebody else gonna make us change something else? If you think no, then you're fucking losing your mind. Because we're getting forced on this. Someone's gonna force us down the road. That's all I'm trying to understand here. I'm trying to protect us. I want my kids to live here. And the way it's going, not gonna happen. So again, I live in a world where government changes their mind all the time and they make you do shit you don't wanna do. So my question is, will there come a time where they say, you know what? Matawan, yes, you met all your obligations, but guess what? Tough shit, I need more housing. Don't change them. That's my concern. If you don't think it's gonna happen, you're all losing your mind.
I thought if we ran out of space that we were not obligated to then continue to build, because I know we had like numbers that were thrown at us, different 17.1s and 14.3s and all these things. I thought it was the answer that if we did run out of space, that we did not have an obligation any longer.
Yeah, so the way it works is this bill gives the municipality the obligation, the opportunity to come in and say, we have a plan that's going to provide the mechanisms for 10 years. Please give us a judgment of compliance and repose. If you have that, you're protected under the current bill, under the current legislation, as it stands today, you have immunity for 10 years. If you are a town that does not have enough space, enough vacant space, you are allowed to take an adjustment off of your prospective need. When you calculate your vacant land and it gets you your RDP obligation. What's left over, the bills in its current form, as of today, says you have to provide at least a portion of that. The rest gets pushed. So that is what that 25% comes in. So you're coming up with a plan that meets the threshold requirements.
I guess
For 10 years.
if there's a
For 10
phase
years.
5, then
It provides
what
you-
would happen? It's like there's a phase 5 or a round 5.
Yeah.
At that point, what do we do? Just renew other units if we can't build? Like, how does that
So
work?
if there is still vacant land, there will still be vacant, there will still be a deficit of land. So there will be another vacant land adjustment. There will be another unmet need under the current bill because the current bill applies to future rounds. So yes, that is the way that in its current form, you'll have to, in the future, provide 25% of your vacant land, and that will continue under the current bill.
But if we don't have any more vacant land, that's the question. Then what happens?
So in the future, let's say in a world of hypotheticals, you have 50 units next round, and I have no idea. And you say, we have 0 vacant land. We have a RD, so we have an RDP of 0. We have an unmet need of 50. Well, then you're going to do 25% of that, and you'll have to come up with a redevelopment project to make that possible. But that's not where we're standing today. That is 10 years from now, or the 5th round.
Okay, so we're safe for 10 years. 10 years, obviously we don't know.
Correct.
We're not even be here. All right.
All right. You want to continue? Or
That's it. I just want to, I mean, we comply with affordable housing for the 4th round and the prior rounds, and that's where the borough's at.
did we get a motion?
We did. We had a motion.
First and a second.
We got a first, we got a second.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilperson Gunn.
Yes.
Councilperson Fowles.
Yes.
Councilperson Legacy.
Yes.
Councilperson Russell.
Yes.
Councilperson Reynolds.
No.
Councilperson Ross.
No.
Motion passed.
Ordinance 25-13, amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Matawan, Chapter 17, Fire Prevention and Protection, Section 17-19, battery-powered device hazard identification cards. We have a motion to introduce.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilperson Gunn.
Yes.
Councilperson Fowles.
Yes.
Councilperson Legacy.
Yes.
Councilperson Russell.
Yes.
Councilperson Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilperson Ross.
Yes.
Motion passed. Public hearing is scheduled for 7 p.m. July 15th.
And Resolution 25-06-27, payment of bills. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion passed.
And at this time, privilege of the floor.
Abby Berg, 299 Broad Street. This is more of a comment and something that I recognize right here. For the last couple of weeks and all these conversations, this town council has been saying, we don't want to have a lawsuit. We don't want lawsuits. We don't want lawsuits, right? We're protecting you, right? But then we turn around and we look at 2506-15 and then 2506-17. And our attorney that we hire because we trust him said, you know what, guys, maybe we should just hold off just a little bit, right? Because we are possibly opening up ourselves to a lawsuit. So maybe table this for a little bit. And then the majority basically said, no, we're going to pass it anyway. So telling me and telling I'm so upset that everyone else left already because I really wish that they were here to hear this. Your blasey blah about not wanting to get sued is BS because you literally just passed a resolution that can open us up for sue. So I don't know. I'll say it. What's in it for the people that are saying yes? That's what I'd like to know. And if it means that independently we're going to have to hire an attorney and get a forensic accountant and look into every single thing that every single person does, then I think that is something that the people of this town really need to look at. Because you can't say we don't want to get sued and then the lawyer says table something because we are possibly opening up to a lawsuit. And we're not saying table it forever. We're tabling it for a week or so. But then everyone, well, the majority who's whatever, they said, you know what, we're just going to do this anyway. So I think that maybe as a group, you should get together, the people who always vote the same way, and say, we need to think of another excuse to make the people believe that we don't want lawsuits because you guys just contradicted yourself completely here. You look like liars. You look like there's something in it for you. And if there isn't, well, you know, I always like to say, if you don't want me to be suspicious of you, then don't act suspicious. You're acting suspicious. There's something going on. And let me tell you something, my job that I'm good at, okay, is researching. I am better than the FBI. That is my job. That is what I get paid to do. I can find anything. And hopefully there's nothing to find. But trust and believe, if there's something to find, me and my peoples, we're going to find it. I literally get paid a lot of money to do that. Have a nice day.
Curtis, is that true?
Thank you for your comment.
Just to be clear, when I was answering a direct question from the Councilman Ross, that in the event that we're not going to build that we're not going to do the backup well, my advice was not to pass the resolution because I said that we could get sued if we pass the resolution and then don't go ahead and do it, that we would increase our likelihood of being sued. But if what the governing body is doing is awarding the resolution and the well gets drilled by AC Schultes, then I don't really foresee a likelihood of lawsuit.
Except for that, it's still in conversation if we're going to sell the utility or not. So why are we going to give someone a contract that they can sue us if we decide to sell the utility if we're not sure? We're not saying we're not going to sell the utility. We're not saying that we're going to sell the utility. But I do believe someone on council said, well, I haven't gotten all the information yet. So now, once again, you guys are making a decision without all the information and saying, we don't want to get sued, but maybe we can get sued, but maybe we won't get sued. It's bullshit. I'm sorry. You can explain it any way you want, but it's ridiculous.
It's if you cancel the contract. The majority of us have no intention of canceling the contract. We want the well built.
And I understand that, but there's also a election in November, so maybe some of you won't be sitting there. You understand? So you're checking something. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they won't. I don't know. Weird things happen in this state. Okay? Weird things happen in this country. Elections change things. I'm not saying anyone is going to be up there. I'm not going to say anyone is not going to be up there, but there's a big possibility that this dais is going to look very different in January. So that's all I'm saying, is that you want to protect yourself from maybe a lawsuit, maybe not a lawsuit. I mean, we're building buildings that don't even have fire trucks that can get to them. Like, well, I guess it's good that we have water for when they fall through the roof because we have sprinklers, right? That's what the guy said yesterday. Well, we have sprinklers on the top floor.
We don't have the water though, we're good though.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, we're gonna have the water now because we might as well just keep on throwing money in the toilet.
We're logical. We see this. Like, we're not dumb.
Anyone else? Privilege of the floor.
Good evening, everybody. William Morris, 162 Jackson Street, Matawan, New Jersey. Nice to see you all. I have one issue. It's a driving safety issue. The intersection of Ravine Drive and Jackson Street. County must have put up a sign there that has, do not block side road. I think they need to do next is to block out the intersection to make it safer for turning vehicles that are going through traffic, either coming from Main Street or leaving Jackson Street to make that left. You know how they have it on the roads?
Yes, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
They need to white out that intersection like that.
Sure, I can have the traffic safety reach out to the county and they can look into that.
Yeah.
Since the county road, sure.
Yeah, because that's, I believe there was an accident there not even like 2 weeks ago. And I'm not sure how it happened, but it's definitely a safety hazard, especially with all the building that's going on and the amount of traffic that does proceed through Jackson Street just to beat the light, and people just coming from both directions because the traffic does back up past New York Bank.
Sure, no problem.
If that could get looked at.
Sure.
And I got another thing, Mr. Files, your outburst earlier, yelling at the crowd, pretty sad. You're for inclusivity and, all that, not a good look, bro. You don't know how people vote. You don't know who's registered as a Democrat. It's not a good look.
Thank you.
To attack people.
I wasn't attacking the people.
It seemed like you were.
No, I was attacking people who are trying to sow discontent amongst the people here.
That would be us.
Political reasons.
That would be us.
That's my opinion. I was not disparaging anybody in this house.
Either way, you ruffled some
I'm a
feathers.
passionate man, and I spoke my heart, and it was a call for community and for coming together. And if that offends you, I can't,
I don't think it just offended me. I think it offended a lot of people.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you misunderstood my.
Well, that's why I'm here, just to sit here and bring it up to you.
Thank you.
I've beaten a dead horse with the 160 Main Street project. It's directly across the street from my house. It is what it is at this point. But, I guess I'll have to move.
Anyone else? Privilege of the floor.
Good evening, Melanie Wang, pronounced Wang. Wang is right and Wang is white and Wang is Wang. Anyway, 2 Clare Court, Matawan, New Jersey. I'm up here because I've got plenty of messages regarding potential glue traps that are around the building, which are inhumane. As being former councilwoman for here and in the animal advisory, I feel that I should come up and address it. I don't know if they are glue traps. I only saw pictures, but even people who are not animal friendly are against glue traps. It's a pretty inhumane killing of any animal. So I don't know, are they in fact glue traps?
Yes, Melanie, I actually just brought that up in my report. I'm going to talk to Ryan this week about it. I had the same complaints.
But are they glue traps?
Yes.
They are glue traps.
Yeah, I'm also happy to respond, Councilwoman. So yes, they are glue traps. And prior to someone bringing it to my attention last week that they are glue traps and that a purpose could be to catch mice, I had never even realized they were for mice. We use them solely for an insect problem that we have in the building. So since becoming aware of it, we are exploring different options that will address the insect problem. To my knowledge, we don't have a rodent mouse problem, so we don't use it for catching mice.
Well, thank you, and it's an educational awareness here because a lot of people don't realize, even people that don't like rats or animals find it to be really inhumane. It's a very horrible, slow death. Plus, it catches other animals.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, privilege of the floor? So noted. Motion to close, privilege of the floor.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good night.
Good night.